Hello and welcome to this video. This video is coming on the heels of my dad taking care of me, after a bout of illness and me finding my feet, getting better after several packs of glucose boosts, a whole ass malaria medication, and very delicious soup that he made for me earlier today. So, in a sense, this video is brought to you by my dad. Thank you, Dad. My haul is so interesting to me. Like I said, it's so diverse, varied. And as much as I have my read along, with Revolutionary Road, I am also like reading bits of all of my books. You get and because if I stick to one book, I'll be bored. Or when I stick to one book, I get bored. But now that I have a very diverse collection, I read pieces of book. And one thing I noticed is that um, most of all these books they have the overall general genre of mystery. You get, and I'm like, I noticed it like picking titles out at the bookstore. I would not feel inclined to pick a book if there wasn't any mystery to them. And I didn't know this was something I was doing consciously. You get, but seeing the similarities between this haul and the previous haul I got maybe like last year, um yeah, there's a very huge theme of mystery, and sort of thriller, but mostly mystery. Anyways, I decided that I started this book, Liar's Diary. The cover is so interesting, the title is interesting, The Liar's Diary actually, and it's by Patry Francis. This book was published 2008, yeah, and immediately I started it, I got hooked um, because of the characters you get that were introduced to me. Sort of something that is right up my alley. The kind of energy of like Desperate Housewives, where a suburban mom, living a regular life, very boring, very full of cracks and holes, but still managing to get by. You know, stumbles upon like or gets involved with somebody that has a lot of secrets. Like think of Edie Britt. I don't know when Desperate Housewives started airing, but in this story, there's like a this character feels like Brie. This character actually feels like Brie. What's her name? Brie. I forgot her maiden name, but Brie. And then the other character or the second MC, Ali, she feels like Edie Britt. So Ali, there's for this character, the main character, Jean Cross. She's the main character, and the story is literally narrated from her perspective. And then there's Alimata, who comes in and shakes up um, Jean's life without meaning to. But those kind of characters that when they breathe in, everybody's a flurry, and sort of like Edie too in Desperate Housewives. And Edie sweeps into the town and she's like sexy, she doesn't care. She's obviously their age mates, she's obviously the same age grade as uh, the wives in on Wisteria Lane, but she acts like age is not a thing to her. She hooks up with everybody and she's not afraid to say her mind, to live life on her own terms. So it's kind of what happens there, but the difference is that um unlike the very direct, gossip and suspicions that the wives had towards or displayed towards Edie. Um, Here, Jane Cross is kind of like an introvert. She's not kind of, she is an introvert, a bit of a loner. Our only friend in school is this man, Brian Shagari, who teaches shop, as in, I think, like technical shop for high school. And her job is the school secretary. So she's the first point of contact where people or staff, students come into the school. Staff have to sign in their attendance with her, clock in with her. And Jean also has a distinct interaction with her. Not anyway, we'll get to that. So Jean is the main character. Jean Cross is the main character. Jean is married and she has a son who also attends high school. the same school where she works at. Ali Matters is married on paper, but she's separated from her husband, and her husband is George Matters. Yes, Ali Matters is married to George Matters, but they are not living together. They're separated, you know. And Ali is dating a guy, very obviously, Jack Butterfield. Jack Butterfield is a car salesman, you know, and in town. Then that is Ali's life. Then Ali, when she starts working at the school, she gets involved with Brian, as if she has an affair with Brian. Brian Shagari is Jane's only friend, not really friend, but kind of like a companion, you know. They hang out together at lunch. They don't hang out with the gossip incorporated. That's what they call the group of teachers that gather and talk about everything and everybody under the sun. So Brian and Jim, they're like partners in crime in that sense. Like they get along well. But I wouldn't call them close, because when Brian starts to have an affair with Ali Matters, he avoids Jean because he's married and Jean is friends with his wife Beth Shagari. The interesting thing is that Jean is not like close friends with her, it's just this kind of housewife banter, like, oh, did you watch your son's soccer today, or did you guys watch, all this kind of connection just based on surface level and all. So the first thing to know, like in this situation, is like Jean has a husband, like I said, and a son, Jamie. Her husband name is Gavin Cross. He's a doctor. He's well liked. He's well respected in the community. And her son's name is Jamie. Jamie is severely overweight, and he's suffering from a sort of, I would call it bullying from his father at home. And because he's nothing like what his father expected. You get, expected his son to be this sport loving, probably basketball, athlete that is so conscious of himself and he hotty. But Jamie is overweight. Although he has a lot of friends, and they all come around the house, they hang out with him, and they are also athletes, but he's more artistically inclined. Yes. So they are very interesting, but I'm not like even halfway through the book, because this book is 309 pages, and I'm at page 84 or 83. Yes, so it's not even one third of the way, but it's so packed, there's a lot of things happening. So now that you get the general skeleton of the world, like the characters and everything, this story is being narrated from Jane's Paul, and there are so many things I want to say. Like the first time Jane meets, not really meets, but encounters Ali. Is when Ali comes into school, flourishes by, and it's like, good morning, and she's described as being so, like, because we're seeing it from Jane's point of view here. Wow, what while we're seeing the world through Jane's eyes. Jane has you know, this moment with Ali, dealing in the emotions that were awoken in her. In this moment, she rushes into school, and the janitor is busy ogling Ali's body, you know. Meanwhile, Jean notices the janitor, and she kind of like, don't you have work to do or something like that? Then she turns around to look at the person that he was greeting, the person that said that greeting. And when she looks at her, she narrates it as, meanwhile, I stood in the foyer and watched the new teacher like I was hypnotized. So Ali is a new teacher at the school, and she's a music teacher. Her violin case swayed provocatively to the rhythm of her work. It was a battered old thing, hardly what I expected a professional musician to carry. Something about the sight of it had tapped into a deeper place for me. What had almost become a forbidden place. I closed my eyes and saw my brother loping through the house, swinging his own weathered violin. Hey JJ, you home? He would call as soon as he got in. Without warning, my eyes filled with tears. What was I doing? It was the first day of school, for goodness sake. My brother had been dead for 24 years, and I rarely thought about him anymore, or about my parents who had died shortly thereafter. Abruptly, Alimata stopped. turned around and looked directly at me, almost as if she had read my mind. I must have been imagining it, but her eyes seemed to reflect my own sadness and confusion. But above all, these eyes regarded me with an almost uncanny understanding. Still, for some reason I couldn't explain, I felt shaky. For the rest of the day, every time I glanced down the hallway where Ali had disappeared, I saw my brother walking through the house with his violin, trailed by my mother's voice. 1 hour of practice, Jimmy. So here we see, like right from the start, a glimpse into Jane's background. Ali, kind of made that dam bust crack open a bit, and it's like, how did I think that's something for us to pay attention to? I feel like the writer wants us to pay attention to the connection, the seeming connection that could lie between, or that could tie Jane and Ali's life together. But let's continue with Ali. Under marital status, she had penciled in separated. Half the women in town believed Ali had personally stolen John's matter from them. It's kind of like this um small town, big fish kind of thing. So like Jane's perspective, like um she described George as a brooding hometown lawyer, and all of that. But after meeting Ali, he decided to go back to school to take a philosophy degree. His personality changed, he had this new erratic behavior, which Jane describes, because we're seeing this world through Jane's eyes. So under contact person, because Ali had not listed her devoted husband, but Jack Butterfield. Handsome Jack Butterfield owned the Saab dealership and was believed to have charmed more women into buying cars they didn't want than anyone in the States. Also separated, if I remember correctly. In describing their relationship, Ali had written close personal friend. This is Jean actually going through the personal file of Ali. You get, but then when her superior steps in, or the principal of the school, Simon Murphy, walks in, she quickly slams the file, slams the metal drawer shut. It seems like this new semester, Ali joined the school for a stint as their music teacher. You get, because she's a professional violinist. Anyway, during lunch, Brian hangs out with Jean. As I stated earlier, they are like partners and whatever. Something that is really interesting is Jean keeps seeing Ali through this kind of lens of perfection, in a sense, but not perfection. It's the kind of perfection like you want to aspire to. She's imperfectly perfect in Jane's eyes, but Jean is, because of the connection, the first kind of indirect connection she felt with Ali, it makes her pay closer attention to Ali, because Ali, after that meeting of their eyes and whatever, Ali does not really reach out to her. Ali um does not try to get close to her. Sujin describes Ali's personality like Ali never attempted to penetrate the well-established circles like most newcomers did. Instead, she cheerfully greeted everyone, then buried herself in one of the books from her backpack, usually novels with unfamiliar titles. Occasionally, she took out a book covered in a rich red silk and wrote in it quietly in a corner. She'd write a bit, then chew meditatively on the end of her pen before going back to it. What's that? Her diary. So this is the first mention, and so far I've read the only mention of a diary, in this story. So when the title is going to Liar's Diary, like I feel like maybe it's implying, maybe the diary in question, the liar's diary in question, is Ali's diary, and the aspect of being a liar has not really been shown to me, in a sense, because Ali is quite honest about everything that she thinks, every the way she behaves. She doesn't obscure things, in that sense. But then again, she might just be now, because we're seeing the world from Jane's perspective. So everything she might be telling Jane might just be, some kind of, I don't know, exaggerations or something. But I don't know about that yet. So for now, this is the only diary that has been mentioned so far in the book, like up to the 80 something pages I've read. Yeah. So I'm feeling like I'm inclined to believe that this is the last diary that the title is, pointing towards. But let's keep on. She's married to a doctor. So she has this habit, the habit of trying to quit smoking, yet trying to quit cigarettes. She tells Brian, because Brian offers her a cigarette. I just lost my appetite. Want to go out for a cigarette? And then Jean replies, "Don't tempt me," I said. "I'm trying to quit." Prompted by my husband's incessant nagging, I was always trying to drop my noxious back in the addiction and always failing. That's kind of like the situation at school. All the teachers are flurry gossiping about the new music teacher, Ali Mathers. Ali Mathers does not care and does not try to be friends with them. She's her own person. She does not give a damn. This is a small pond for her. And then there is Jean, who is sort of hooked by Ali's presence, by Ali's aura, basically. And then there's Brian, who is partners or friends, not partners, I should say, but kind of a companion to Jane in school. So anyway, after the conversation, Ali stops bringing her diary to school because at some point in the conversation, Brian Shagari spoke to me in a low voice. Good thing Ali started leaving that diary at home. Imagine if one of these sharks got their hands on it. It would be headlines in Bridgeway Patriots. And then we get to see what Jade is, thinking of Ali. As for me, I wasn't. She doesn't tell Brian. She's just taking it to herself. As for me, I wasn't at all interested in what the music teacher wrote in her diary. It might have been something as benign as musical scores for all I knew. What fascinated me were the books she read. After she left, I scrolled down the titles in the notepad I kept in my pocketbook. I too was a hungry reader. I devoured over 100 books a year, sometimes reading until the early hours of the morning. I read until I forgot whatever troubling incident had occurred in my household that day. But the books Ali read were different. How? Not only were many of them set in exotic locales, they took me deeper into the landscape of the human heart than I had ever been. Frankly, some of them, particularly those that probed unhappy families, made me uncomfortable. Still, I kept reading. On one occasion, Ali spotted one of the books she had unknowingly recommended on the table where I left my things. "Who's reading this?" she asked as she slid into the chair opposite mine. When she found it was me, she even nodded, as if she were surprised. "Isn't it wonderful?" she asked. I felt secretly pleased by the glances that were exchanged when people saw us sitting together, talking about a book we both love. The conversation didn't last long before we each returned to our reading, but a bond that went beyond books was formed that day. It's like it feels like Jean is reading a lot into every single connection or seeming connection to, you know, kind of like a fan girl. Jean acts like she's a fan girl of Ali, but in the same forbidding way, as if she's kind of hiding the fact that she really likes this personality of Ali. You get, but then again, her love is not, it's not love. Her appreciation or her interest in Ali's life and Ali's aura, you know, is not fully there. It feels like it's kind of like a love hate, balancing act in her head, which you see, in her thought process as the book goes on. So I just want to come back and say that the reason why, the story, why I'm so interested in it, the mystery of it all is that, so there's Jane with her husband Gavin and Jamie, living a very pretty, like a fake sort of dynamic of suburban average family, and then there's Ali Matters living her life, living with her engaging with her boyfriend, meanwhile separated to her husband, all of them living in the same town, and then getting involved with Brian, having an affair with Brian, which happens later, and then is that dynamic. Then suddenly Jean and Ali are brought together by car rides. Jean Ali asks, requests Jane to, pick her up every day to go to school and to drop her off after school. Jane agrees eagerly, and then everybody starts to see Jane as Ali's only friend. They are both connected in that way. But then Ali has an issue where she begins to notice that somebody comes in her home, leave signs that they were there, but she can't guess who the person is. Eventually, she breaks up the affair with Brian, and Brian becomes obsessed, horribly obsessed with Ali. So the issue is like, if she has a hanger on like Brian hanging around, wouldn't it be easy to just be like, Brian is the one stalking because he can't bear the rejection? Like, you would want to make that easy connection, yeah. But then one day something happens and Jean actually fainting from all of that. So the question is like, now at this point, it's like, who is stalking Ali? And this person is bordering on dangerous for. So the whole build up to that point, has me thinking that the answer to who is stalking Ali might not be as clear cut as you'd like to think, from the obvious culprits. So let's just keep going. Jean goes, but a bond that went beyond books was formed that day. And it's like, ma'am, Ali has not reciprocated that attention towards you in that sense. Ali is an environmentalist, as described in this scene that Jean narrates. One afternoon, when a substitute English teacher was complaining about the high cost of a repair job she had done recently on an SUV, Ali unexpectedly looked up from her book, pulled off her reading glasses, and let her views on automobiles in general be known. She had let her license lapse more than 15 years earlier, and she said, I never missed it. If you ask me, cars are destroying America. It's not just the pollution and the depleting resources. They made us fat and lazy. Okay, maybe not an environmentalist. There was a moment of stunned silence before the substitute cracked. I don't know about the rest of you fat lazy people, but I'm having another brown brownie. And here, Jean agrees with the consensus. Okay, maybe Ali did sound a little self-righteous, but the woman had a point. And it's at this moment that um, she notices that Brian has begun an affair with Ali, because Jean narrates, as the weeks passed, I watched my friend for signs that I was wrong, but Brian began to avoid the lounge and grew increasingly evasive with me. When other teachers noticed him loitering outside Ali's room or spotted the two of them sharing some tea on the lawn, they too began to nurture some suspicions. But for me, all it took was one glance to know that Ali's Christian mother had garnered herself another close personal friend. I felt almost personally betrayed. Brian Shigori was the only teacher I really liked. Why would you feel betrayed? He's a man. A man in a obviously boring, like, to him, boring marriage. And let it be known that Brian is 31 years old and Ali is 46. That comes up later. To make matters worse, I also knew Brian's wife. Jean is thinking, hmm, before her third child was born, Beth Shagari had occasionally subbed at the school and we still ran into each other all the time. There's this look after Ali's pronouncement of how automobiles are destroying America. There's this look that Brian had on his face. He was annoyed. And Jean described it, he was downright angry. When his eyes met mine, I knew right then and there that something was going on between him and Ali. It was just one of those things, you know. So after that look from Brian in the lunchroom, I studied his wife more carefully the next time I saw her in the store. I don't know if you can hear my voice, it's so scratchy. Comparing her to her unknown rival, Beth wore her dark hair in a short, low maintenance cut, and her face was utterly devoid of makeup. But then she had the kind of natural good looks that really didn't require a lot of cosmetics. Hold up, what does that mean? What does that mean? Not wearing cosmetics is a choice. It's not just a simple matter of your face doesn't require cosmetics. It's a choice. Like, relax. Watching her innocently selecting apples in the produce section, I wondered how she would take it when she found out found out her husband was involved with a woman who was almost old enough to be her mother. Wow. Okay. Why is Brian dating somebody so freaking young? Beth Beth looks up at Jean at the store, and they exchange these pleasantries, like basic pleasantries. You know, she calls it perfunctory conversation. How's Jamie? Ready for soccer season? The baby show is getting big. Gets into everything as you can see. Well, have a good weekend. So that's the level of friendship between Beth and Jean. So Jean, though, on this particular day, she says, however, I felt a rush of shame, as if my insight into what was going on between her husband and the music teacher some made me somehow complicit. And we get introduced to Jamie, in Jane's head. Jane is describing her son as at 16, Jamie was at least 50 pounds overweight. And despite my best effort to follow the pediatrician's advice, I just couldn't seem to keep him away from the sweet and fat laden snacks he craved. Yeah, because eating disorders are usually mental, not physical. But that's just a side note. um Even if I resisted his demand, even if I came home with nothing but fruit and carrot sticks, I knew I would find the same mountain of candy wrappers, soda cans, and potato chip bags in the back of his closet and under his bed. But despite these signs of forbidden foods and my curiosity about where he got the money to buy them, I never confronted Jamie with what I found. Somehow, I felt his endless hunger for the things those packages contained was a shameful secret between us, as much my fault as it was his. So, like, something about eating disorder that I can speak about is that there is a whole lot of shame going on, like in the individual with it. There's a lot of shame for the behaviors that they cannot help but um act out. For the behavior they can't help but express, there is shame in that sense of powerlessness. But let's continue. Somehow, the whole um the whole putting into perspective Beth and Brian and Ali, somehow it rounded on her, like she describes. She says, but deep down, it wasn't the sight of poor Beth dragging her kids through the store while her husband sat around mooning over the music teacher. It was Jamie. It was my own family, my own home, a place where everything appeared to be in place, under control, but where nothing was, not really. So then, Jean heads home, and as Jean heads home, we're now giving. She now focuses her lens, like her mental lens, on her family, which we now have an insight into. My husband was a natural athlete who had lettered in three sports in high school, and from the first time he held the son, he had hoped Jamie would share his interests. But when they were alone, me and Jim would have these secret conversations where he'd be like, "Don't say anything to dad, but I'm too slow for basketball. I'll never be good no matter how tall I get. Don't tell dad." More and more often, this is what's passed between Jamie and me. "Don't tell dad what I got on my report card. He'll never know the difference, mom. He doesn't even know when the marking periods end." And when I bought Jamie a forbidden hot fudge sundae or splurged on an overpriced pair of shoes for myself, I used those words too. "Don't tell dad. Your father doesn't have to know." Increasingly, my relationship with Jamie was based on secrets, on an implicit promise that we would never tell. So it tells you the kind of dynamics that exist between husband and wife, mother and son, father and son, and then father and son and mother. Now, a little insight into Gavin and Jane's relationship. How did it start? Where did they come from? Um, and Jane gives us a backstory. Everyone, but in this way, she's telling us, are you sure she's not also writing a diary? Like, she could have her own diary too. So, but before that, everyone had been surprised when Dr. Cross, the good looking resident from orthopedics, took an interest in me playing Jane. You already know that sentence is so wrong. The newest hospital secretary, and so quiet that I'd been on only two dates in my whole life. Jamie would find it hard to believe, but I'd never even been to a single high school party, never hung out at a pizza joint or other gathering spot waiting for a certain boy to appear, never sat up all night giggling and gossiping with a friend at the sleepover, at least not after my brother's accident. Again, another glimpse into Jean's backstory. Jimmy had filled the house with life, that's her brother. And when he was killed just before I turned 14, the family never regained its balance. We lived in a house where sorrow was so tangible you could taste it in every dish my mother served, hear it in the creaking of the floorboards when we moved through the house, see it in the furnishings that grew old and frayed and dusty but were never replaced or restored. If bad luck had been looking for a door to knock on, our dilapidated house, where the shades were perpetually drawn, was the perfect address, and knock it did. Dilapidated implies that they were maybe just middle to low income class, like family. My father died of a heart attack only 7 months after the accident. My mother always laughed bitterly when anyone called his death sudden. We both knew he had been dying since the moment we got the call about Jimmy. For the next 4 years, Mom and I lived separate lives in the same house. She tried hard not to show it, but I knew she had always felt closer to Jimmy than to me, and they were so much alike I couldn't blame her. I don't know about that. After he died, she was inconsolable. Anything could trigger a day of crying. A snatch of the music he had once played, an encounter with one of his friends, the blue of a favorite dress shirt he used to wear. Though I had once hoped to go to college, there was no thought of that after my father's death. There was no money for one thing, but even more significantly, I couldn't imagine leaving my mother alone when she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer at age 51. She seemed almost relieved. Our only concern was what would happen to me when she was gone. Jimmy died. Then 7 months after, her father passed of a heart attack, and then 4 years later, her mother got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. So you see that Jane's life, was punctuated with sadness. Her brother died when she was 14. You get, so 4 years after her brother would be what, like 18 years old. Yeah. So for all those important ages, those years where she could have just, where she would have, you know, blossomed into, a teenager, experienced puberty and all of that. She could not, because she was having to tiptoe around her mother's sadness and then having to take care of her mother. So there would not be any chance for developmentally for Jane to like look into herself and develop her own, or see, like, build a self-image, recognize her identity, all of that self-discovery and self-actualization. She might not have had the chance to experience that, however little her teenagehood would have afforded her, because most of it happens as an adult. But when you're a child punctuated by such immense griefs and sadness, it's a lot harder or nearly impossible. So her mother's only concern was what would happen to me when she was gone. Gavin Cross answered those fears. Like, enter Gavin Cross. Gavin Cross answered those fears and worries beyond her greatest expectations. So Jane, her mother was feeling a bit better, like during Christmas period, one year like that, and she got tickets, to a concert, to an annual back Christmas concert. You get, and her mother has a love for classical music, those kind of things. So she wanted them to go together, since she was feeling a little bit better, did that period. She would just with her mom to the concert. But her mom could not get out of bed on that day. She was really, really sick, as happens with people that have cancer. They have good days and bad days, but you never know which day is which. You get, but so because of that, Jane ended up going alone to the concert, and she had an empty seat beside her, the seat her mother would have occupied. But later, like during the concert, later, however, sitting alone among the happy couples and families only exacerbated my loneliness. The emptiness of my mother's seat beside me felt like a vast chasm, separating me from everyone in the hall. I was probably the only one there who wept during the exultant Advent cantatas. You can imagine my dismay when I looked across the aisle and saw a familiar face turned towards me. I recognized Dr. Cross right away. I could hardly believe it when he abruptly got up and crossed the aisle. Mind if I join you? He said, moving into my mother's empty seat. It didn't sound like a question. Okay, that is a habit. Later, when the powerful music again drew on my long suppressed emotion, Gavin startled me again by reaching for my hand. He was still holding it when it was time for intermission. Like how? Why did he? Why did this happen? I heard about your mother's illness, Jean. I'm sorry, he said softly. I was frankly shocked. I never thought the handsome doctor, that is a problem, knew I was alive, much less my name, or that my mother was terminally ill. At the end of the concert, Gavin invited me for a drink. Then, apparently remembering that I was underage, he amended it to coffee. Oh, okay, okay. There in that dark coffee house, encouraged by the warmth in Gavin's eyes, I spilled everything, beginning with my brother's death, right through the day when we first heard Bob's diagnosis. So, like, obviously, all of these things happening to Jane, there was nobody paying attention to her at this point. Like, nobody was paying attention to her. The adults in her life were wrapped up in their own grief, which eventually swallowed them up. But there was nobody to kind of sit her down, and be like, oh, Jean, how does this feel? Like, what happened to you is terrible, like like a neutral voice, to tell her that she can actually process her grief too and not have to tiptoe around life because worried about other people's sadness. She was entitled to having her own sadness, which is something anybody with empathy can spot from a mile away, especially if she opens up to them. But because Gavin was her first experience of of such a connection, you get it's obvious here because she doesn't mention having friends either. She was very introverted, but she is still very introverted, so she didn't have any friends, at least not the kind of friends that would connect with her in that way. So having a an adult figure, you know an adult figure proper can't I speak again? Properly established his own right in his own self. He's a doctor, you know, and he has a self image, he has an identity, he's matured, he has experience, he has years under his belt. So, talking to an 18-year-old, it would be so. How do you think, that thing should feel to somebody that has normal things in their head? Is it not going to feel like, oh, you're just going to be a friend? In that sense, you're just going to be just like a warm shoulder, like a steady shoulder she can lean on, in that sort of friendship way, which is still kind of soft, but still. Yeah, she's 18 and her talking about the horrors she passed through or she's still going through since her mother is still sick. It's something that should not inspire feelings of romance in my own head. Or I feel like you don't just go straight to wanting to romance this child, romance this person. Like, where does the romance come from? But because she has no guidance or adult guidance in her life, she felt happy for the first time in years, which is normal. It's a very normal reaction. But that happiness was something new, something foreign, something she felt like meant something. You get it meant something so deep to her that she says we were married in my mother's hospital room just 3 months after that back concert. So she was not even 19 yet. Like she was not even an adult, like full adult yet. Like she was barely towing the line of consent. God. We were married in my mother's hospital room just 3 months after that back concert. Though she had less than a week to live and her body was racked by pain, she looked more serene than she had since my brother's death, which is just like horrid. Like she mother was probably desperate, you know, she was desperate, and she probably just felt like this is the best way she could take care of her kid. Leaving her to the element would be much much worse. After her death, because they were poor, they had nothing that they left behind for her. So all of that coming together, you can see the kind of dynamics that exist between Gavin and Jean. It is not an equal level, it was not an equal footing. She was just a young, grief reading or grief stricken child who was taken advantage of by an adult that should have known better. But she wouldn't have this awareness yet, I feel. Maybe one day she'll come into it, but so far that I've read, she hasn't come into the awareness. So the relationship progressed in a way like they got married in a hospital, a mother's hospital room, which is so fucking wrong. Like that is not love or romance at all. That is just, what do you call it, salvation. Like you're saving somebody with the offer of marriage, And then there's the savior and the helpless person. So you see that kind of dynamics. There's no way that love can grow or blossom. Or let me not say there's no way, but love is kind of far fetched in such a connection. Love would be far fetched to hope for. And I don't think Jean also would recognize love, in that state of mind, or yeah. Since we had always rented, Jean is like still reflecting on the past. Since we had always rented, my only inheritance was a rundown cabin in New Hampshire, a little place that held up all the ghosts of my family's happy times. I'd often wanted to go up there to share the cabin with my husband and son, but Gavin worried about the amount of grief and loss I'd absorbed in my short life. You never know what it will trigger, Jane, he'd say. Memory can be a dangerous thing. And I always acquiesced. Like, we see it a lot. Jean continues to narrate where she would have her own thought about something, and then there's Gavin's idea of it, there's Gavin's condemnation of it, there's Gavin's condescension at it, there's Gavin's disapproval at it, there's Gavin's cold edged feeling about it. Like a lot of things in her life is controlled by her husband, but she doesn't see it as control, obviously, because how did they get married? So how did they get to the point of being married to? So yeah. Now, whenever I felt myself, like she goes on to say, now, whenever I felt myself inwardly complaining about Gavin's frequent criticisms of Jamie and me, or the isolation I sometimes felt in spite of all the social events we attended and the prestige we enjoyed in the community, I reminded myself, I reminded myself how lucky I was. No! Not only had Gavin prevented those painful memories from gaining entry to our sunny home, he had given my mother a peaceful death. The way she even says, like, Gavin prevents her painful memories from entering their sunny home, is like reminding me of the part one of Inside Out, where Joy was like kind of refuting sadness at every turn. She was like, no, sadness, you're bad. Go to this corner. Go cry in the corner, all those kind of things, until sadness had to like enter. And when sadness stepped in, and connected to Riley, and Joy also connected to Riley, like I think they got to a point, I don't remember, but they got to a point where Joy and sadness, came into union. It gave Riley balance, gave her peace, gave her a sense of self, a sense of realness, to the life that she was living. So Jane is still at this point where she thinks, sad memories, painful memories, bad, pretending like everything is all right, good. But in the fact that she doesn't even know, like she tries to hide from the fact that she's pretending. So for the whole marriage thing, she keeps thinking of what her mother told her when she failed at picking up an instrument or being artistic, as if oh, you just don't try hard enough, Jean. Again and again, I vow to work harder at my marriage, to be more patient and understanding, a better wife. Is Gavin working hard at being a husband? Is he bound to be a better husband? Is he trying harder at the marriage? You can't just make those promises to yourself without considering the other person in the marriage. It's two people that are involved. There's not one person. Or like, let's just keep it. And when Jamie complained about his father's badgering, I reminded him how hard Gavin worked. He should not work hard. He'll be sleeping on the street if he doesn't work hard. How stressful a doctor's life was. He's a doctor. He signed up for it. Of course, his life is going to be stressful. It's not a given. It's not special in that sense. He's not doing anything for Jamie by living a stressful life as a doctor. He chose that path. But increasingly, my words and my effort felt hollow. And then it's in this day that um Ali reached out to Jean, and asked for a favor, the car drop off favor where Jean would come to her house, pick her up in the morning, and both of them would go to school together, and then both of them would come back home together because Ali's house is in the way of her route to school. You get, so it's not going out of her way. So Ali calls the house, and she's not expecting anybody to reach out to her because she doesn't have friends. Even as an adult, she doesn't have friends. But the way it goes is like, but to my surprise, Gavin pushed the door open, the phone in his extended hand. It's for you, he said coldly. Someone named Ali Mother. I reached for the phone, wondering what the music teacher could possibly want from me. Ali went straight to the point. She had injured her knee that afternoon and would be off her bike for a few weeks. Would I mind giving her a lift to work in the morning? Of course, I quickly agreed. For the rest of the evening, I felt ridiculously excited, almost like a teenager with a date. I imagined what we would talk about in the car. Should I ask her about music? Ali would be pretty surprised at how much I knew about the subject. Then there was the latest novel I was reading. There was another one by the same author, Poking, from Ali's backpack. I wasn't sure if she had read this one. Maybe I could introduce her to something for a change. Or maybe we could just talk, I thought, standing in the middle of my pristine kitchen. I didn't realize how desperate I was for a female friend until I felt the sting of tears in my eyes. So chapter 3, they start having their lifts, together. They start having lifts together. Like it's the first week of their lift, and Jean asks, "How long do you have to stay off your bike?" Usually, when this happened, I rested for a few weeks, then I go back to my normal activities, Ali said, waving at the postman as we passed by. Apparently, she was chummy with all the men in town. So, this train of thought, apparently, she was chummy with all the men in town, feels like it has a bit of a bite to it. Like, things didn't improve much in the first week as the days passed. I grew increasingly uncomfortable in Ali's presence, not to mention irritated. Had I just imagined the connection between us? I blushed when I realized how I'd conjured a bond that didn't really exist. To make matters worse, Ali seemed totally at ease in the silence. When I struggled to make conversation, she gave me distracted one word answers, then she scanned her datebook or checked her image in the mirror. Sometimes she even sang a little snatch of a song, almost as if she had forgotten I was there at all. I don't think I'd ever seen such perfect or infuriating poise in my life. So, there are some people that they are very outwardly loud, very friendly, sociable, but when you are with them, you know, in close quarters, they don't really talk a lot, they don't speak a lot, they don't even try to extend that hand of friendship towards you that you think they so generously extend to everybody else. But it's like, then again, Ali doesn't really know Jane. Like I said, Ali doesn't really know Jane. Jane thinks like the way her head works, she thinks, okay, because they have this connection with books, maybe Ali would try, now that she's Nika. But first of all, Ali is always honest with herself. So she's not going to try to force something that is not there, especially with a there's also the factor that Ali too. doesn't have female friends. Ali doesn't have any female friends, and is still coming up of this kind of character. This character trope where the lady is extroverted and she's friendly with all the guys in town. And for some reason, all the girls hate her because or all the women hate her because all the guys that those women are attracted to or have a crush on automatically just like her or pick her always. So she's like, I don't want to hang out with people that will be jealous of me, those kind of energy. That's kind of vibe that Ali has. So Jean is quiet, Jean doesn't say much. And I feel like Ali would just imagine that Jill wouldn't mind the silence because she's not also like outward, like she's not extroverted, in that sense. But in the second week, during the second week of their lifting and all of that, Ali asked, "Mind if I play a CD?" Startling me with the sound of her voice. And then there's this way Jean describes Ali's person. It's kind of bordering on worship or too intense of an attention. She says this sound of her voice, she describes it as a voice as snakily seductive as a saxophone. What does that even mean, Jane? I don't know why she bothered asking. Even before I had a chance to respond, she inserted a thin disc in the player, flooding the car with raucous hard rock. The kind that jangled my nerves when Jamie played it in his room. Wow. God, I blotted out. I thought you were a classical musician. Briefly, Ali treated me to the silvery laugh that had charmed half the men in town. Why is her laugh a treat to you? It sounds so, it's like she's like she's hanging out with a celebrity. Like, that's just how Jean thinks about Ali. Like, Ali is the celebrity that she worships or adores at least. It sounds so violent, doesn't it? She said, but made no effort to remove it. She took her time in explaining too. We sat through a complete song, if you could call it that, before she said, the CD belongs to one of the kids at school. He wanted me to listen to it. You can learn a lot about a person by the music that rattles their spirits. But that music gives my spirit a headache, I said. Maybe you could listen to it at home. But once again, Alice seemed to have forgotten I was there. She was caught up in the music and probably thinking of the student who had lent her the CD. A brief but clearly troubled expression flashed across her face before she abruptly pressed the eject button. So I wonder what particular lyrics she must have heard in this moment that made her feel so troubled it showed on her face. I would have loved to know the name of the student who had aroused her concern, but Alice spent the rest of the drive staring at the window, lost in her own thoughts. Even more mystifying, she actually seemed angry with me. When we reached the school, she climbed out of the jeep and slammed the door without a word. You're welcome. So, like, Alice angry at her because I feel like my own conclusion is that the person that gave Ali the CD was Jamie, because she, she already agree, she already like Jean already said it that the music reminds her of the kind that Jamie played in his room, you know, and yeah, she goes on to say it like, alone for a minute, that's Jane. Alone for a minute, I put my head in my hands, still hearing the music Ali played in the car. It was the angriest music I'd ever heard, except in my own house, from my own son's room. For a brief moment, I wondered if Jamie might be the student who had lent Ali the CD. Then I quickly ruled it out, which is something Jean does a lot. She rules out any train of thought that actually makes logical sense but that threatens her sense of safety and stability in the sham that she holds up as a family. Anything that threatens the stability of the fast that she's calling a family, she rules it out. She gaslights herself out of the thought, which would see, which is interesting because that makes her sort of unreliable. You get, it makes her unreliable, but we've not gotten even up to one third of the book, so I wouldn't jump to that conclusion yet. And besides, Jamie, she ruled it out. She goes on to say, and besides, Jamie, um, Was it in Ali's class this year? A lot of high school boys listen to music like that. There was no reason he would seek her out and let her ICD, even though she knows that a lot of the boys at school are fawning over Ali. You know, why would she rule out Jamie? Jamie is severely overweight. It's not like he's special or anything. Of course, he's going to be charmed by the music teacher that is raucous and has bright red shining gold hair. You know, like of course he's going to be charmed enough to use, like he's a teenage boy most of all, most importantly. But despite ruling it out, she says, and yet all day I couldn't shake the uncomfortable feeling that Ali had deliberately played that music in my presence. That there was something in those violent drum beats and hateful lyrics she wanted me to hear. We don't know what the hateful lyrics are. We don't know what they are. So let's just keep going. Like Jean made up her mind to not talk to Ali. Like she was so angry at the way Ali was angry at her. She was like, she's not going to, you know, give her another ride. That she's not a taxi service. She should call herself a taxi service and all of that. But Jean, when they were going back home, Ali made an effort to speak with Jean, which is what Jean wants, to talk to her. So she starts to talk about her son with Ali and how Ali is not an, and how Jane is not an athlete, but he has a lot of friends on the team. Anyway, they start to talk about music taste too. And Ali asked again, like, what kind of music rattles or what rattles your spirits, Jean? And she responded, classical. I said, without missing a beat. Why don't you put on 92.8? I think she was surprised by my answer, and even more surprised when I recognized Mozart Concerto Number 2. Maybe that was why I changed my mind about telling her to find another ride to work. For some reason I couldn't explain. I needed to prove there was more to Jane Cross than she thought there was. A lot more. So Ali is like her first fumbling kind of deer in the headlights. Or what do you call him? Baby deer. Like baby deer. Thinking about that Netflix show. Ugh. She's sort of like a baby deer fumbling steps into what a friendship feels like. So there's probably going to be a lot of misunderstandings, confusions, anger, annoyance, before you kind of mesh or get along with this person you are trying to be friends with. That's what I want to see it as, but I don't know, the way she keeps on speaking about Ali feels kind of celebrity worship, and that is also an unequal dynamic. I don't think you can be friends if you put people on pedestals in that sense, you get. So going along in this vein, the morning when everything changed between Ali and me was a particularly dreary one. So Jean had gone as usual to Ali's house to pick her up, but in front of her house there was drama. Wait, Jean, she mouthed. And when I pulled down the window, she yelled, just give me a minute. What was going on? Jack Butterfield was parked askew in Ali's driveway. Apparently, he was there all night, because he had seen a man go into Ali's house. And instead of confronting the whole situation, he just sat outside waiting for them to finish in that sense and for him to confront the person, the man, which in this case would be Brian. But Ali saw his car, and after they were done, she let him out through the back. So she went to bed thinking he would have gone home, but he didn't go home. He sat there all night, slept there all night, like his takeout. And then in the morning, when she was about to go to work, to leave to work, Jack comes out of the car, bumbling towards her, sort of a bit violent because when Jean sees the whole interaction, sees Jack heading towards Ali, like at her front door, she feels like, okay, maybe I'm not needed today. But Ali tells Jean to wait. And Jean, as Jean goes, I put on the brakes not because I thought Ali needed a ride so badly, but because of the expression I saw on her face. She was afraid. She was afraid. So you see that whole mystery of who is stalking her. There's also the suspect of what, of who? Jack Butterfield. You understand? But then again, the story still progresses. So let's keep going. I don't know. Jane then goes into this whole um description of Jack's whatever, and it's just so weird. Like this is somebody that she looks afraid to see, and you are describing him as. But the amazing thing was that sleep deprived and agitated Jack Butterfield had never looked more attractive. Girl, get up. He was not charming or smooth or any of the other adjectives that his many admirers around town used to describe him. He was just plain, I hate to say this, I hate to say this. He was just plain animal sexy. I watched him transfixed. For the first time, I understood why Ali had ruined her marriage to a wonderful man like George Martha over a car dealer. Relax, okay? Relax, drink some water. Like, why are you describing him as animal sexy? This guy is literally making your friend has fear on her face that you have to stop. And describing him as animal sexy because he rolled out of bed or something, or he didn't sleep at night. Then she goes on to see their interaction. By now, it was clear that Ali wasn't afraid, but she wasn't about to back off. From the jeep, I could hear his voice, but the only words that drifted through the air intelligibly were curses. When he showed Ali roughly against the door, I jumped out of the jeep. If I no jump. Jack, however, never even turned in my direction. He remained impervious to everything except Ali. The closer I got, the more obvious it was that Jack Butterfield was more distraught than threatening. Okay. It was also clear he didn't recognize me from our various social meetings, nor did my presence mean much to him, as you'll see. This is kind of like a wall. There'll be a fly on the wall to most people in town. The only thing that makes her get noticed is that her husband is handsome and he's a doctor and he's a big deal in the community, and they're like, how did such a handsome doctor get involved with a person like Jin? Basically that's just uh, the only thing that makes her get noticed, around town basically. And if it's around town, it means their whole life. So eventually, she soothes Jack's agitation and he's convinced to go home. I mean, Ali soothes him and he goes home, drives away. Anyways, after he leaves, Ali appeared frozen in the doorway. Eyes were closed, but when I ran to her and put my arms around her, she was trembling. Are you okay? He didn't hurt you, did he? Ali shook her head. I only wish he had, she said sadly, but I'm afraid it was the other way around. Sometimes I don't know what's wrong with me. It was the first time I'd noticed the dramatic golden color of her eyes. Even without makeup, her skin was translucent and shining with emotion. Jane, what does this mean? What does it mean for somebody's skin to be translucent and shining with emotion? Because I have no fucking clue, bro. Like, ah, God. And Ali is so dramatic. I don't know what's wrong with me. I wish he had hurt me. I'm the one hurting him. Oh, God. Old women. This is that person, mama. I don't know. Ali doesn't have children, but still, guy, you're 46. Get a grip. I guess this is the only sort of excitement, that her life affords her, and she will not let go of, I think. Well, we'll see it as the story progresses. Anyway, Jane suggests maybe Ali takes the day off, and Ali's like, no, I need to get out of here, out of my own life for a little while. She looked at me deeply. What about you, Jane? Do you ever feel like that? And it's like, ah. I was stunned by the abrupt shift in focus. But as I'll come to realize, such turnarounds were part of her nature. Just when I was convinced Alimava was the most self-absorbed person I'd ever met, she was starting me with a sensitivity to others that took my breath away. It's not like she's not sensitive to other people. The only reason she's startled is probably because, first of all, this is her first close interaction with any human being aside of her husband and her son. So, in if it was a general, well balanced relationship, it would just be something where you'd be like, oh, my friend is self absorbed, but it's okay. I love her that way. in that sense. But like saying she startles me with um a sensitivity. It's not a sensitivity, it's literally written all over your face. Like, and as you see, it's still self-centered in that sense. She goes, what about you, Jane? Do you ever feel like that? Of course, I wasn't caught off guard. I was ready to with the usual stock lines. The lies I told everyone around me, including myself. Not me. I was too busy for feelings like that. And besides, my life was so boring and routine. But somewhere in the middle of my spiel, I found myself choking back something when I tried to speak. It was more than a cliched lump in the throat. Thank God. No, what prevented me from reciting my usual lines was nothing less than the truth. The truth that I could no longer hold back. Yes, I said, staring into Alice Topaz colored eyes. I do feel like that almost all the time. Okay, so that is a break in their friendship, like a, what do you call this? A defining moment in their friendship where I think they crossed from just co-workers in Ali's head though, so something more, something a bit deeper, in Ali's head, because the defining moment is Ali turning towards Jean and reaching out to her, not a mutual coming together of like, oh, let's take our friendship deeper. Let's make more a conscious effort, because we like each other so much and we want to be around each other. And, I like you and you like me, and it's an equal footing we are on, you know. But defining moment, the change in their relationship is coming when Ali chooses to finally notice Jean. You get, because Jean was a witness to one of her private moments or her vulnerability. So, yeah. And then when they're coming back home from school, instead of dropping off and going home as usual, Ali invites Jean in for a glass of wine, which Jean is like tempted to say no to, but she surprised herself by turning off the ignition and saying, "A glass of wine sounds great," I said. Walking inside, I glanced briefly at my watch, promising myself I would stay only a half hour. So Ali Jane finally goes into Ali's home, and they say things like, a person when you go through their home, or when you see the inside of their home, like that's when you know a person, whatever. So she goes into Ali's home. She sees Ali's living environment. She sees different things, how she decorates her house. It's the age of CDs, so there are CDs everywhere. Um, she even saw abandoned panties on the floor. But Ali did not make any effort to clean up or change anything or to prepare anything for her. To her, that was just she was just being herself, in her own space. But Jean feels embarrassed looking at the pants, so she looks away. Ali took a sip of her wine and laughed. Like Ali saw it and laughed. Her legs folded under her and she loosened her hair and twisted it over her shoulder. As you can see, I had company last night. Mr. Butterfield, I said, imagining a lover's quarrel followed by a sleepless night for both parties. Suddenly, the scene I had witnessed in the morning made sense. Actually, it wasn't Jack. It was. She hesitated as if deciding how much she trusted me, then simply said, someone else. The problem was that Mr. Butterfield, as we call him, decided to drop by at home. A most inopportune moment. You mean he has his own key? So the issue is like Jack walked in on her with Brian. So he has his own key. So he walked in on her with Brian, which is really. Anyways, um, Jean goes on to ask, so was there a confrontation? I mean, when the other man left. I don't know why. Alice shook her head. Alice whispered that he went out through the sun porch in the back, then crept through the neighbor's yard to his car. Jack must have been focusing on the door. Maybe he had fallen asleep. He was so angry. Jean is talking now. I He was so angry Jean is speaking. I murmured, thinking of the animal energy Jack exuded as he crossed the lawn. Do you think he'll go after him? What is wrong with Jean and all this animal energy? Anyway, Ali goes on to say, all Jack's anger is directed at me. I'm the one who betrayed him, at least by his definition, but not by yours. That's what Jean says in reply. Ali got up and began to pace up and down the room, the glass of wine in her hand. I never promised anyone fidelity. I'm not even sure I'm capable of it. But that doesn't mean it doesn't mean that you're not sorry you've hurt him, I said, completing her thought for her. Jane, you need to chill. Exactly, Ali said. I love Jack, I really do, in spite of our differences. Sometimes I don't know what's wrong with me, Jane. I'd never seen anyone look more miserable. For the second time that day, I hugged her, inhaling the subtle perfume of her skin. Hmm. Okay, okay, okay. God, I'm actually doing it, Ali says. Doing what? I asked, feeling mystified. Confiding in another woman. This might be a common occurrence for you and every other woman on the planet, but not me, okay? I'm not like the other girls. I've never had a close female friend in my life. I was too involved with my music, I guess. And men, I thought. But all I said was, it's not all that common for me either. This has to be one of the biggest understatements I've ever made. First of all, Ali is not blind. She's sensitive. So why would she think? And again, the person that Ali hung out with was Brian. She hung out with him so much that the person Jean hung out with was Brian. And she hung out with him so much that Ali doesn't even feel comfortable telling her um she's sleeping with Brian because she knows how they are close. So why would she say this is a common occurrence for you? It seems so blasé, like Jean, you're one of the plebs. I'm different. I don't go for female friends and all of that. I'm just not wired for that. Maybe it's just my music. I'm an artist. I'm an artist. I'm an artist. So it's like, okay, man, relax, relax. And Jean goes, it's not all that common for me either. Anyways, and I don't even know the amount of suffering that Jean went through sort of makes her even more of an interesting person than Ali, you know. But Jane is not somebody that has come to terms with the grief, at this point in her life. And she just repressed it like her husband said she should, whatever. Chapter 4. All the cars, all the people are waking up and going to work at this time, so you can hear a lot of horns and car noises. But we're in chapter 4. So on this day, it's very early in the morning, like 5:16. But Gavin goes to answer a call in his office or something. But at that point, they don't have cell phones. Oh. It's house phones they have. Let me make that clear. They have house phones. Nobody's using cell phones. So, or she doesn't have cell phones. Gavin goes to pick the call, goes to answer the call, and he comes back to the room irritated and like, it's for you. Some guy who works with you at school, at least that's what he says. Gavin is not jealous, he's just annoyed at being disturbed. Jane says as much. Taking his cue, I carried the phone into the hallway, wondering why in the world anyone from work would be calling me at this hour, and a guy. I leaned against the wall in the hallway. Hello. It's me, Jane. Brian, I repeated, feeling dumbfounded. Ever since the rumors about him and Ali started, my former ally had avoided me at school. What's wrong? There was a brief silence as if Brian was collecting himself. It's my wife, Jane. Beth took the kids and left last night. So they eventually agreed to meet up somewhere because apparently Brian is like he doesn't know what to do, and she's like, okay, maybe there's something I can do. Let's just meet up and see, and all of that. So As Jane is stepping out of the house, Jamie confronts her in the meaning of going, "You're going to meet him, aren't you? Shop teacher, Mr. Shagari." And it's like Jane goes in her head, his words confirmed an uncomfortable feeling I'd had lately when I was on the phone. The sense that someone was listening in on the other line. So there's also the aspect of Jamie listening to his mother's call and his father probably. Anyways, Jane goes to meet Brian at a donut shop or whatever called Ryan's famous lemon donut, which is funny. So she goes to meet Brian and she's looking at him and she's like, okay, so you have no idea where they've gone and all of that. And Brian is, and she's like trying to comfort him, touching his hand or whatever. And he jerks away from her touch and assumes a posture of defeat and says to her, I lied to you. My family is at home in their beds, at least for now. And Jean, rightfully, she goes, you mean you got me out of bed at 5 in the morning for no reason? I had to talk to someone, Jean. Who was I going to call? Gossip Incorporated. He said, but our old joke fell flat. When I got up to walk out, he seized my hand. Wait, Jean, last night Beth told me she's planning to go back to Indiana. She said I'll never see the boys. So she knows about Ali. I said, pretending to know more about the relationship than I did. Someone told her a couple of weeks ago. Brian blurted out, obviously too tired and distraught to deny his affair. Someone from school. And that was why you called me. You thought I was the one who went to bed. Well, you're the only one in the building Ali really talks to, besides me, of course. Brian said with a clawing hint of pride. So naturally, I thought of you. And besides, you know Beth. Ali had never talked to me about her relationship with Brian. Whatever it might be, a friendship, a serious affair, something that took place largely in the confines of his obviously disturbed brain. I thought of the lace panties I had seen on Ali's living room floor and of her admission that someone had been with her the night before. Someone I had assumed was Brian, though I couldn't have said for sure. For all I knew, it might have been poor devoted George Martha who had aroused her lover's jealousy. Listen, Brian, you made a mistake, but these things happen. You can't let it destroy your family. You could try counseling, something. But Brian just stared at me. Beth suggested that I said abruptly. But there's no point. I've made my choice, Jean. Your choice? What are you talking about? I haven't been staying at the house for weeks. You've left your family over Ali. I blotted out. God, Brian, don't you know I'm staying at the oak tree? He said before I could add anything I did he didn't want to hear. I didn't respond, but Brian must have said so. Apparently the oak tree was a dilapidated motel where the town alcoholics rented rooms infested with cockroaches and infused with the scent of urine. Oh god. Infused. I don't need this feeling sorry for me, Brian said, angrily reading my thoughts. It's like, why did you call this woman out here? I'd rather sleep alone at the oak tree. At this point, I'm thinking, like, why did you call her out here? Like, you don't want her pity, you don't want her counsel, you don't want her comfort, you don't want her suggestion. What did you call her here for? You suspended her of telling everybody, and she said she's not there. So let's consider her end. And he goes on to say, I'd rather sleep alone at the oak tree than spend one more night beside a woman I don't love. My family would probably be better off if they go back to Indiana and forget I was ever born. How, bro? You are a literal father. You have two boys. You have a responsibility to your children, financial too, so they cannot forget you were ever born. Are you a kid? Like, what kind of nonsense is that? So, Brian, Jane goes, obviously exasperated. Brian, I came out here practically in the middle of the night because you said, but the fury in Brian's eyes stopped me cold. I know what I said, but I was desperate, Jane. I've left 11 messages on Ali's machine and she still hasn't called. Then last night, I camped outside her house all night. She never came home. I don't know what to think. So this wasn't about Beth and the kids at all, I thought, feeling irate on their behalf. What Brian had really gotten me out of bed to talk about was his obsession with Ali, as one does. As one does. And so Jean goes on spouting platitudes. But Brian angrily threw off my hand, accidentally spilling the cold coffee that he had left untouched. You don't get it, do you? I can't go home. I don't want to go home. Until I met Ali, I was living a zombie life. I was a dead man at 32. Oh, it's 32. But now, well, I don't have to tell you. You know what she's like. Shit, I feel horrible about the kids, but I'm not giving her up. So Brian says, you know what she's like. So there's this basic general assumption that everybody sees Ali as like a celebrity, like this wonderful enigma, this beautiful, mysterious creature that is magnetic, that has you hooked. She's beautiful. She's this, she's that. And it's like, why is it that I know what she's like? Why are you saying I know what she's like? Like, I don't know, in that moment, I would probably ask you, but thank God it's not me. Thank God, because I cannot have a friend like this. Suddenly feeling shaky myself, I pulled a pack of cigarettes from my jacket. Fortunately, there was one left. Again, she mentioned, again, Jean says, I was trying to quit, and in fact, I hadn't had a cigarette in 2.5 weeks. But listening as Brian described my life to a T, I was suddenly desperate for a smoke. So this part of it is like she was him saying I was living a zombie life. I was a dead man at 32, you know. But Ali has brought me back to life, you know. I know what it means to be passionate about something, to feel love, all of that, not his words, Sha. And for Jane to feel like that's a mirror of the summary, like a mirrored summary of her own life, she was stressed because she goes on to think, yes, I know what she's like. I thought, thinking of the way I myself had changed since my friendship with Ali developed. It wasn't just the way I'd pulled back my hair or stopped taking the car everywhere I went. It was something far deeper than that. What is it? What could it be, bro? What could it be, Jane? Okay, this part is interesting. I'm sure you know Ali's married. Even though she's not living with George, she's very devoted to him. Is that what she tells you? That she actually loves the old geezer? Myself, I think it's more a matter of pity. Brian, I don't think you should be making such calls. But a dark expression which painfully reminded me of the way Jamie had looked when I left the house crossed his face. Whether she's in love with him or not, Ali will never divorce George, I said flatly, giving Brian a dose of the cold truth, just as someone from school had apparently done to his wife. And even if she did, she's almost 20 years older than you, Brian. Do you really think you two have a future together? 15 years, Brian amended. It's not so much of a difference when two people feel the way Ali and I do. Um, okay, let's calm down with the theatrics. Like, even though I just acted out something theatrical, but Brian, let's calm down. Ah, God. So anyway, Jean goes on to try to dissuade Brian. She says, he's not just her husband, you know. I said as gently as I could. What do you mean? I hope you don't think you're the only man Ali is sleeping with, or even the one she's most serious about. I knew it was futile, probably even dangerous to try to press the truth on someone in Brian's state of mind, but I couldn't stop myself. The color seeped from his face. You don't mean that car dealer? He scoffed. That was over when she started seeing me. Ali is in love with Jack Butterfield Brian. I'm tired of saying this guy's name. It's such a mouthful. Has been for years, I said. She told me so herself. If it were possible, Brian grew even paler than he had been before, then slowly began to shake his head. Whether it was a gesture of disbelief or simply stern denial at the depth of his own folly, I didn't get the chance to find out. Because at that moment his eyes were diverted to a counter where a woman stood watching us. I don't know how long she had been there or what, if anything, she had heard. But Shagari looked haggard and drawn, but most of all worried. Brian, please, that's his wife. So his wife had come to find him at the Brian's donut. And it's like, who told her that Brian was there? You know, she probably came to see Brian meeting with Ali, I guess. But it was not Ali, it was her friend, Jean. So she says, Brian, please, she said, approaching the table. Maybe you don't care about me or even about yourself anymore, but you can't go on like this. For the boy's sake, you have to get some help. That's the end of chapter 4. Hello, and it's chapter 5. In chapter 5, um, Jean makes it back home. Makes it. Jean returns home and it's already sunlight, and her son has gone for his morning run. And run is in air quotes here because Jean tells us Gavin had recently outlined an ambitious exercise program for him in the hopes that Jamie would shed some flab, but I suspected as soon as he rounded the corner of our street, Jamie had shambled over to Ryan's for a couple of lemon donuts and an extra large hot chocolate. I probably had just missed him. So Jamie is living so many secret lives. And something I came to like a realization after the last chapter was that the person that told Beth Shagauri, Brian's wife, about his affair with Ali Martha is probably the same person that told Beth Shagari to go look for him in that lemon shop. And I suspect Jamie because Jamie was listening into his mother's call, when Brian called her so early in the morning. And he came downstairs to confront her about where she was going to. So I suspect he's pushing Brian's wife to stop Brian from sleeping with Ali or having an affair with Ali, which is already over in Ali's mind. You wonder, like, what's the motive of Jamie doing that? But then Jamie was most likely the person that gave her that seed. So it feels like Jamie, to me, the way things are lining up, it feels like Jamie has a sort of crush on Ali, but which is not it at all, you know, which is not it at all. And the crush would be definitely kind of obsessive, because it's not normal for his age. Anyway, this whole aspect of him to lying about his run, and going off somewhere instead of actually running or telling his father the truth, or even his mother, it just makes me as a reader, I just see Jamie as a very devious character in a sense because he has too many secrets, too many lies, and he's obviously living double, if not triple lies. So he's like he's up there, among the suspects of who could be stalking Ali Matters. But let's continue. When Jean got to her house, she saw a note that Jamie left for her that Miss Martha had called. It even says it here that but as soon as I sat in my usual spot, I saw the messy note my son had left before me. Mrs. Martha called. That was all it said, but for some reason, maybe it was just the excited exclamation point at the end, I suddenly felt clammy, weak, and suffused with rage at the same time. The way Brian Shigori had looked in the donut shop. How many people knew where Brian had gone besides Jamie and me? So, like, yeah, she's also thinking along the lines. But Jean, as usual, tried to erase the thoughts from my head. I ripped the note into tiny pieces. So as usual, Jean always erases thought that she does not like about her son, but she tries to. The last thing I wanted to think about at the moment was my growing worries about Jamie, the learning disabilities that the battery of tests had failed to diagnose, a mountain of candy wrappers that accumulated in his closet each week, and the thing I tried hardest not to think about. Here is where we get like a clue into the type of special that Jamie is. A trove of pornographic magazines I had found at the bottom of the drawer where he stored his off-season clothes. I had hardly looked at them before I threw them in a dark trash bag and hauled them away, but there was no way I could banish the violent images I had seen. Who would sell such things to a kid? I thought angrily as I carried the bag into the garage. Of course, I intended to tell Gavin. I even went to the phone and dialed his office. But as soon as the secretary put him on the line, I froze. Not just because Jamie and I had made an unspoken pact never to tell Gavin the truth about each other, but because of the way I knew Gavin would respond. If I had the temerity to suggest that Dr. Cross's son had been secretly amassing a collection of violent pornography, I knew he would find a way to blame me. I was too lenient or too overprotective, depending on his mood. So she disconnects the call. She doesn't called. She doesn't tell Gavin immediately. But like it's here we see that Jamie might be onto something, I don't know, devious or nefarious. Violent pornography, having a weird obsessive crush on his teacher, calling his also teacher another teacher's wife to inform her of where her cheating husband is. All of those things, it just seems like everything is directed towards Alimata at the center of his uh, plans. And violent pornography, she just recently discovered it. Okay, it was not something she had discovered before. The only thing Jean usually discovered was his stash of candy and forbidden foods and all of that. So, but for her to recently discover like pornography, and I'm not king shaming, okay? Like I'm all for kings, but for the context of Jamie's existence or Jamie's personality, Jamie's whole context, Jamie's context, this is not like some healthy, like this is not something healthy. You get it's something that speaks to something darker, something darker. So all of that going on, then Jean continues to debate, like she goes on to debate, perhaps more disturbing than the pornography was the possibility that my relationship was coming to mirror the one I had with his father. Two people divided by an even higher wall, or two people divided by an ever higher wall of secrets and evasions. But when Jamie came home from school, I found it impossible to broach the subject. So Jamie comes back home from school and is being a teenage boy, a normal teenage boy. She says happy, excited, and well, normal. The same bright light he had always been. So she was like, okay, there's no getting around this. She needs to talk to it. She needs Gavin to talk to him about it instead of herself. I don't know. Well, that's the extent of my experience, and I understand. That's why I brain rich. So that night, she goes to approach Gavin in his study. But there's something that Gavin has been doing for a while. Like he keeps on implying to Jean that she's edgy, she's on edge, and I don't know, maybe it's from the moment she told him about her family tragedy or whatever. Since then I think he has been putting her on this, he has been handling her like this kind of an arm's length, in the sense of like as if she's a time bomb waiting to explode. you know Say, oh, your grief is a dangerous thing, like memory is a dangerous thing, don't let your grief pollute our sunny lives. And when she brings up this topic, when she tries to bring up something with her husband, which Gavin can obviously notice that she's on edge, like something is making her feel on edge. Like, okay, in this moment she wants to talk to you. Try to know what is going on. She's the one that manages the house and your son. So like, try to ask her or find out why she's acting the way she's acting. Gavin is every time Jane tries to bring up a concern or an issue, you know, Gavin starts to say, oh, maybe you should take drugs. Maybe you should take, basically, because he's a doctor and he has access to these prescriptions, he just wants to, he sort of abuse it. Like he just gives it to her. That kind of thing, like all this 1950s wife where the wife will take drugs just to sedate herself to exist in such a home environment. You get, so that's kind of what Gavin does to his wife. He constantly makes her feel like her worries, her concerns, which are very normal. Even her griefs are not normal. That she's just a weirdo. She needs to take drugs to cool off, to take the edge off. Like she's so antsy and anxious. All of that. So whatever. That's what happened. That's the same kind of thing that happens here, because this is a serious issue for parents to address as long as they know about it. This is something that Jamie should have somebody to talk about, to work it out, because he's still a minor, he's very much underage, and he should not be sold those kind of things. Actually, as much as I'm not trying to kink shame, but at his age, it's not, at his age and context of all that he is living, he's not turning to violent pornography. Kind of lends to something traumatic going on in his head, or something wrong, not something traumatic going on with him, or something that he needs to go to therapy about basically. But Jane is not at the level of maturity. Not that she's not mature enough, she's old and all of that, but that whole dynamic between an underage girl with a well adjusted, like not well adjusted because he's very stupid, with the with a full grown adult, underage adult connection, that kind of thing. Should I say grooming? I don't know about grooming, but in a way it feels like that. So that kind of dynamic never went away after they got married, or after she became like a full grown adult, because it's something that would be registered in her brain. I don't even know what I'm saying, but the point is this interaction doesn't go well, because instead of telling him, or just bracing up and telling him, she can't. She turns it off to he goes into his study, she knocks on the door, intending to bring the matter with him once and for all. And he says, yes, what is it, Jane? I found myself stammering like an idiot with my own husband. Well, I thought maybe we could talk a little bit. But if you are busy, it doesn't look like a good time. So, God, what was wrong with me? Actually, I'm in the middle of a research piece I'm writing for an orthopedic journal. Is this important? He spoke softly, but his impatience bristled in the air. Obviously. No, well, yes, I mean, I've been feeling well, a little edgy lately, and I thought that maybe you might prescribe something for me. So this one, he just gleefully rushes to give her the drugs. He says, I'm glad you're ready to deal with it, Gavin says, smiling and nodding like he did with his patient. You haven't been yourself lately, Jane. I've noticed, and I'm sure lots of other people have too. Think about it. You work at Jamie's school. The last thing you want to do is add to his problems. He shook his head the way he always did whenever I mentioned Jamie's problem, already removing the prescription pad he kept in his locked drawer and scrawling the words. So, like, is that not like abuse of like a prescription or something? Your own personal judgment, not that she's showing any symptoms, your personal judgment. I left the study shaking. Was I really acting so strangely? Had other people noticed? I went to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of wine. Is he going to take wine with the drugs? So, anyways, she leaves him, goes to the kitchen, and finally makes a call to Ali's number. So, as soon as Ali answered, she blots out the story of what happened in the study, all of it. She even gives a nasally imitation of Gavin, saying, really, Jane, you should have come to me earlier. Ali laughed out loud before her mood abruptly turned. Bastard, she said. Immediately, I balked. What the hell was I doing talking about Gavin to someone outside the family, making fun of him even? I know he's trying to help, but I said, beginning to feel queasy. Help? Is that what you call it? Ali pressed. She clearly sounded like she had had too much wine. Are you not having wine, Jane? Telling you that everyone from school is watching you, then pulling the ultimate guilt trip that you're hurting Jamie. She seemed to take a long sip from her wine, none of which is true, by the way. If anyone's acting strangely, it's that husband of yours. Exactly. Like, what? Why is it that when you want to broach a topic that is concerning you, he starts to say, you're edgy, you're edgy. Do you even know what is making her edgy? Is she talking about seeing ghosts in the closet or monsters under the bed that saying she's acting it? It's just very regular, logical, rational human concerns. You get everyday life concerns. Like, what is edgy about that? And Gavin is so annoying. He has this whole idea that his life should be this picture poster of perfection, where his son is a perfect athlete while his wife is a lifeless doll that keeps the house clean and pristine, and just keeps his meal ready for him and leaves him alone to do his thing. Like, that's not how marriage works. But I guess that's what he wanted. That was his goal after all, for going after an underage child, or after going after an underage person, to marry, as a full grown adult with a career established already, like a professional one at that. Like, you see the fact that having all these degrees or being a professional even does not make you sensible, does not make you mature or logical. Even having years under your belt does not also make you mature. You can be also very sick and twisted in the head, no matter how much external additions you get to your life. So anyway, Jean is not used to this kind of habit of talking about her issues. She's used to burying them. So um she has a very um typical reaction of the habit of suppressing the things that she feels are wrong. She suppresses them, suppresses her emotions and everything, and kind of backtracks talking about Gavin with Ali. To which Ali says, whatever you want to tell yourself, Jane, it's your marriage, she said with a hint of impatience I heard in Gavin's voice. So whatever, she goes back to, then at night when she goes to bed, she says she keeps on hearing Ali's voice in her head. Whatever I want to tell yourself, Jane. Mm. And then the next day at school, Jean goes to fill her prescription, and Alice word keeps bringing in her head whatever you want to tell yourself, Jean, because I feel like that is a very important aspect of Jean's character. She tells herself things. She gaslights herself. She suppresses her emotions. She does not allow herself to feel things. She just goes through life. Basically, like even a robot will not go through life like this. And I've watched a lot of robot movies, so I know. She takes the um pill. She takes the pill and she hides it at the bottom of her purse, so she doesn't want anyone to know. Despite my best intention, days and weeks had passed, and I never found the right time to talk to Jamie about what I had found. Nor did he mention his pilfered collection, which shows that he's aware. Okay, if somebody takes your stash or something, like, are you not supposed to confront the person, like, did you touch my things or something? But he doesn't touch it. He doesn't complain because him too, he's used to, he is used to keeping up this facade of pretense and all of that. So he doesn't mention it. Then because he doesn't mention it, she starts to gaslight herself. I wondered how I adapted him. Obviously, some sicko had passed the collection to Jamie. Maybe he was even hiding it for a friend. In any case, it was natural for a boy to be curious, wasn't it? Curious means as an under, like as a minor. Curious means, oh, what is sex like? Oh, how does love feels? Like, oh, I like this thing. Like, that's curiosity, not stashing, hiding porn, violent porn, and then pretending it wasn't there at all because your mom found it. Like, that's not curiosity. That's weird. Again, Jean mentions this aspect of Jamie's behavior, but I couldn't shake the disturbing sense that Jamie was listening on my calls. A suspicion that was exacerbated by his breathless three-word note. Obviously, he had overheard our call this morning. It's not this morning. What kind of timeline is this? She says, despite her best intention, the passage starts, despite my best intention, days and weeks had passed. And is it still, you said days and weeks had passed, but you're talking about him overhearing your call this morning. Which morning again? So I don't know, the timeline is a bit off. Like, I don't think this person wrote like that. I don't think the author arranged the timeline well, because the day had already gone, because like they said during morning coffee break at school, she went to fill out her prescription here that Gavin gave her the night before. The night before that being that same day that she came back from her run, that no, the night being the night of the day that she went out early in the morning around 5 to see Brian Shagari. So she came back. Jamie had gone for a run and wrote a note that Miss Martha called. You get, and that note that Miss Martha called, she held on to it, all through the day, cleaning the house. That she found his violent pornographic stash, and then after that, at night time, instead of calling her husband at the office at night, she decided to talk to him in his study. Then he prescribed her drugs instead because she did not bring up anything with him. And then she took the prescription note. She then went to call Ali, like, she now called Ali and recited and narrated everything that happened. And then after the call ended, she threw her wine away and then she went to bed. It's here, but that night when I went to bed, I could not remove Ali's voice from my head, whatever you tell yourself, Jane. Then she went to bed, and then we see that during morning coffee break at school, that implies the next day, yeah. So that day is over. Then she keeps on narrating, despite my best intention, days and weeks had passed. You get, I never found the right time to talk to Jamie about what he had done. Then she began to gaslight herself that. So now we are back to this point where she says she couldn't shake the troubling sense that Jamie had been listening to her phone call. So she cannot say this morning. She already said this part. Like, so I think the timeline is just maybe they didn't pay attention to this part. It's not this morning, it was that morning, or maybe. Anyway, what was Jamie was clearly titillated by this bit of gossip. I could picture his flushed face when he had heard the shop teacher's anguished voice on the phone, as adolescent embarrassment mixed with voyeuristic relish. When Jamie got home, we would definitely have a talk about the importance of staying out of other people's business, particularly adult business. In the middle of my thought, the phone rang. As soon as I heard Ali's voice on the other end of the line, I forgot my concerns. So now is another aspect of gossip again. Have you heard from Brian? I asked before she had time to say much more than my name. Sounding slightly breathless but remarkably free of curiosity, she said, "No, but I heard you two had coffee this morning." For a moment, I lapsed into stunned silence. How could she know? Had Brian called her? "Your son told me when I called earlier," Ali explained before I could ask. So it's like, which earlier are you people talking about? Like, you already said despite my presentation, days and weeks had passed. Or is the pornography? Like, no, the pornography is something that happened on that day because she wanted to address it with Gavin that day, and Ali like called the night of the same day. So I don't know, the timeline is bad. I don't know. So Ali is calling to inform Jean actually because she doesn't care about Brian shenanigans. She calls Jean to announce that she's not going to that Jean should not should not bother picking her up from school this week, that she's taking a few personal days. So Jean is like, I hope there's no problem. No one sick in the family or anything. Again, Ali hesitated as if considering how much she wanted to tell me. "No, I just need to get away for a few days, that's all," she said at last. Apparently, she had been weighing whether to confide in me or not and had decided against it. Well, she can't actually confide in you when somebody else is listening in on your call, or like it's not about Jean herself not being trustworthy. I think just the environment that Jean is in is not an environment where she's not that person you can tell your secrets to, because she can be easily convinced to vomit your secret. When pressed, Brian can force her to say the secret. Her husband can force her to say the secret. Jamie can listen on the line. So I think it's a good call for Ali not to trust Jane with her secrets. I was about to tell her exactly what I thought of our affair with the married shop teacher, making sure I added a description of Brian's disturbing demeanor in the donut shop when Ali abruptly cut me short. "Well, listen, I won't keep you. There are a few things I need to pack. I'll give you a call when I get back, okay?" And even without waiting for an answer, she was gone. But just before the connection was broken, I was sure I had heard the unmistakable rumble of a male voice in the background. This woman, this Jane. And Ali is also very short with her. Like, she's just like, I don't know, the kind of friendship they both had, but I wouldn't call it friendship. I still think it's one person is on the pedestal, the other person is mindlessly like tagging along like a puppy or something. But like Ali is not exactly leading Jane on, in my own opinion. So she's in the kitchen, like reeling from the call, and Gavin is standing in the doorway to the kitchen in his bathrobe, his lips fixed in that straight line that said he was trying to conceal his anger. Is that teacher again, right? God, my neighbors' dogs are so fucking infuriating. Then before I had a chance to respond, he added, "Tell her to get herself another taxi service." Like, they have two, three dogs, but they keep treating the dogs like shit. And then the dogs are always half the time crying, scared out of their minds, spooked by any little sound. Like, they cannot just like be chilling. They don't keep them inside. And I'm sure there is a tiny dog among them. They don't keep them inside. They just leave them be to the elements. And then when they make so much noise like this, you hear one of the kids come down to scream at them to shut up, or an adult come and shut them up. Like, bro, feed your dogs or something. It's so fucking annoying. Ah. Then before I had a chance to respond, they had to tell her to get herself another taxi service. I stared at his rigid back. It was rare for Gavin to order me to do anything, at least of all in that tone of voice. Rare? That means she's living in serious self-deceit. And when I asked why, he said, that woman's a bad influence on your son for one thing. Jamie was up at 5 this morning, pacing around the house like a lion, caught up in a tawdry little drama. How is that Alice's fault? Is that not a tell on you, his father? Of course, my mouth was full of protest. How could a friend I never brought home be any kind of influence on our son, good or bad? And next year, Ali would be Jamie's music teacher, whether Gavin liked it or not. There were a lot of things I wanted to say. Perhaps I might even spit out a few words about the kind of influence Gavin himself was, with constant criticism and his rejecting silences. But before I had the chance to speak, Jamie came in from his jog, his face ruddy from running the final block. Hey mom, he said, sounding winded when he entered the kitchen, but then spotting Gavin at the table where he was nursing a cup of coffee, Jamie cringed noticeably and fell silent. It's like he can't even speak where his father is, and use Ali as a bad influence. Pretty chilly out there this morning, huh? Gavin said, looking up from his coffee. Then, before Jamie had the chance to say another word, Gavin added, you better go upstairs and have a hot shower before church. Nonsense. Of course, they are churchgoers. After casting a miserable glance in my direction, Jamie put his head down and lumbered up the stairs. I sighed deeply, wondering how I would get through another Sunday smiling at my fellow parishioners while wonderful Dr. Cross greeted everyone by name, cooking a gourmet dinner that my family would gulp down so distractedly they hardly tasted it, facing Jamie's uncompleted homework assignment at night. So the way Jamie is learning disabled or something, Ali Jean has taken to just doing his assignment for him, which Gavin constantly berates her for, saying she's spoiling the boy, basically. And it's like, you are not any help. Like, how do you teach somebody by screaming criticism down his neck? How is he going to understand anything, Baba Doctor? And meanwhile, Ali was off, taking a few personal days, listening to music, taking long walks somewhere, working on her music, and undoubtedly spending long afternoons in bed with Jack Butterfield, the best lover she had ever had, according to her. For the first time, I felt some of the envy that fled through the lunchroom, seeping into my thoughts like a poison. Like, I don't know what to tell you, ma'am. I really don't know what to tell you. That is not Ali's fault. You can live your own life, but at the end of the day, it's not Ali's fault, but it's okay to feel envious, of people that have seemingly easier lives than yours. Like, it's a very natural emotion to feel, especially when the kind of life or the circumstances you are in, feels as if makes you feel like you're trapped, or that you have no agency or no voice, but something about Jean is that she has no self-awareness, in the sense like, if she was self-aware, she would be able to reflect that all of this trap, this poison is because this feeling of being trapped and helplessness is because she was manipulated into a situation she would have never agreed to if she had the choice, but she had no choice. So she was sort of arm twisted into this whole thing she calls a family, a marriage, a wife role, all of those things you get. But then again, feeling envious about people like having a good life is not something you should dwell on, because at the end of the day, it's going to snowball into blaming that person. Like, it could snowball into blame that person. So as much as you feel envious, you can feel envious in awareness, in the sense that you allow the emotions be, and you just sit with it without judgment, without feeling guilty for feeling envious, just, I don't know, just sit with it and breathe through the feeling, and let it pass, because it will pass, whatever, it will pass. Let's go on to chapter 6. Chapter 6, this is like 6 chapters. I am still not at my point of bookmarks. Anyways, um Ali comes back from her break and she's in Jean's car as usual. They keep on doing the right thing. I know what you're thinking, Ali said, crossing her legs in my car. We had reached the school parking lot, and after a mostly silent ride, she remained settled on the front seat. And the worst part is, you are right. Every nasty thing you've thought about me these last few days is true. I looked at my watch. It's 8 on the nose. We better get inside, I said. I wonder why she waited until we got to school to bring up the subject. If she wanted to talk, why did she speak up when she first got in the car? But when Ali reached out and touched my arm, looking more troubled than I'd ever seen her, I forgot my annoyance. Do you know how many messages he left on my machine while I was gone? She asked quietly. At least a dozen. Each one more desperate than the last, and if the tape hadn't been filled, I'm sure there would have been more. I repeated, though I knew she meant Brian Shigori. I also knew she was lingering in the parking lot because she was afraid we'd be waiting for her outside her classroom. But in the meantime, she was keeping me from my duties at the front desk. You know who I'm talking about, Ali shot back. In spite of her obvious trepidation and guilt, she looked particularly striking that day in the simple black skirt and a sweater, her face lit from within. Again, I consulted the timepiece on my wrist. All I know is that it's already past 8 and I, for one, have to get to work. They are going back home. And then she brings it up again. This whole thing has been a huge mistake, Jane. It never should have happened, Ali began. But before she got the words out, I felt myself overflowing with confusion. And yes, anger. I couldn't help remembering Beth Shigari's stricken face in the donut shop and Brian's desperation. Then why did you do it? I said. Ali, you have a husband who is crazy about you. Not to mention Jack Butterfield. What in the world did you need with Brian? This kind of angle, I see Brian is some helpless um baby deer. Why do I not baby deer, baby goats. As if um Brian is some helpless baby goat, that cannot, that, oh, he was seduced. And then the whole mention of the age gap, like mention of the age gap for me, I feel from Ali's point of view, we are seeing it as just her feeling like, oh, I can pull, such a age range of a guy, like 30, in his 30s, early 30s, I can pull such a guy. But then thinking at it from Brian's angle, like when Jean was talking to Brian, like berating him about it, it's like Brian is a full-grown adult too. He's 32, he's not even 31, 32. So I don't know, when you're in your 30s, I think you are free from the idea of this baby nonsense. Guy, relax. It's not, he's an adult. They are literally the same. Like, it's free range here. Like, there's no difference in that sense. You get. So, anyways, that's one of the angles I'm reaching for, because they're saying it as if, oh, Ali is so mature, she's 46, she should not be going after a younger guy that has a family. And it's like, even if she had not gone after a younger guy that had a family, he would have actually tried to seduce her. He would have tried to like hook up with her regardless, because she's sexy in his eyes and he's a consenting adult. She too, she's a consenting adult. She could agree, you know. Ali sighed, clinging to her book bag on her lap as she gazed out the window. I don't know, she said miserably, as if someone else were directing her fate, not her. Oh, Jane, someone like you couldn't begin to understand the things I've done. The way she keeps on addressing Jane like some kind of fan, like not fan exactly, but like some kind of mentee, like you don't know anything about this. You don't know. Let me teach you. Let me tell you something that you don't know. That kind of energy is kind of irritating and condescending. And Jean feels it too, because without commenting, I took a corner near the school at a reckless speed. A group of students who were walking home turned towards the sound of my squealing tires. Then, seeing it was me, they began to point. I could see my name on their lips. It's Mrs. Cross, someone yelled, obviously impressed by my wild driving. Deciding it was probably better to be relaxed while listening to Alice's tempestuous story, I asked, feel like going to Paradise Pond? But I had already made sharp rights that led to the small wooded park before Ali had a chance to answer. It was unseasonably warm, and as soon as I parked the car, Ali opened the window on her side and inhaled the pretty blue day. Oh, this is such a beautiful description. I actually like, aside from Jean's intense attention to Ali, I actually enjoy descriptive phrases the writer uses to describe, like the writer uses to show us, you know, how the world is that they live in is how can you inhale a pretty blue day? It's very, I don't know, I like it. I like it very much. The sight of trees, even bare as they were, the air that streamed through the window seemed to calm her. She stared outside for several moments, lost in the beauty of the spot. She had previously told me that she always came here when she was in trouble, and the place unfailingly calmed her. She was even working on a piece of music she had entitled Paradise Suites. It's like interesting that I like that Jean is also like Jean would make a wonderful friend because she's for her to be so attentive to her friend like to Ali, and remember where she mentioned she likes to visit when she's stressed. That's a nice person there. Then she turned to and her empathy is wasted on a man like Abby Cross. That's why I feel she's very depressed. She cannot express this side of her that is very emotional and feel because her husband likes to take things like mass 1 plus 1 is 2, like then she turns back to, and her husband constantly writes up all her emotional expressions as edgy, anxious. She needs to be careful that people are looking at her as Jamie's mom, people are looking at you as my wife, all those kind of things. So then she turned back to me, her face as defiant as a teenager's. I don't expect you to understand this, she said, but I have no idea why I ever slept with Brian. Maybe I just did it to see if I could. Genuinely confounded, I blinked. I guess you're right. I don't understand. If I were a man, you would, Alice said, her chin lifted in a childishly stubborn expression, which, yes, that makes sense. Men pursue younger women for sport all the time whenever they start feeling a little insecure. But when a woman does it, it's another thing altogether. I think the one word that stunned me most was sport. Was it really possible that the woman that I had come to think of as my best friend had broken up a family simply to test her well-proven powers of seduction? Not wanting to believe that, I focused on the phrase that casts Ali's action in a more understandable light. So that's why you did it, because you were feeling insecure. See, Jean is so Jean is so feely. Like she's so on the money. I don't know if that's exactly the right word. Maybe unsure is more like shut up, you're insecure. When I first met Jack, I was so intoxicated with him. I would have done anything for the man, and I did. I gave up a wonderful husband, a life that most people would consider as near to perfection as you can get. But in recent months, well, things changed. I wasn't sure if I felt the same or if he did. Hungry for the breeze that had begun to waft through the dark lacy trees, Ali opened the door. And this is Jane describing Ali, like telling us what Ali is feeling, basically, like inferring for us, you know, what Ali is doing, which is very interesting. Hungry for the breeze. It's so nice out. Why don't we walk? She said. And indeed, as we made our way across the quiet park, I realized exactly how hungry I had been for warmth, for air, for the sight of trees. So maybe most of what Jean does to Ali is projection. Wearing only a thin sweater and skirt, Ali, who always dressed too lightly for the weather, wrapped her arms around herself as if to protect her fragile frame from the power of her feelings for Jack Butterfield. Just thinking of him, she once again became luminous. I really need to have a picture of what this luminous is. Is it like Bella watching, what's his name? Is his name Jack? Hey, in what's his name? I don't know. Bella Swan. What's that? Her Richard Patterson. No, eh, Richard Patterson. What's that? His vampire name? Bella and that vampire that used to sparkle with diamonds, basically. Maybe that's the kind of luminosity that Jane sees anytime Ali is like just being herself. Ever since he found out about Brian, it's been like it was in the beginning. She said she stopped and loosened the tumble of reddish blonde hair. What's wrong with my reading? She stopped and loosened the tumble of reddish blonde hair and let it flow over her shoulders. But then I guess you know that jealousy is the world's best aphrodisiac. Of course, I knew nothing of the kind Jane is thinking. Nor did I know about the kind of passion that existed between Ali and Jack, an emotion that made her virtually shimmer as she spoke about it. Okay, Twilight, yes. Bella and what's his name? Is his name Jack? Don't tell me his name is Jack. Oh. Hey, Baba God. Ah. Anyway, I don't know if I can play that clip of him shimmering like diamonds every time this woman says luminous or shimmer. This is like Jack is so slick. Like he seems like someone who can't quite be trusted. And Ali goes on to say, I mean, that's his allure. I mean, there I was married to the kindest, most loving man I've ever met. I had everything to make me happy, and I was happy. Don't get me wrong, but something was missing. I could feel it in my music. Again with the music, Ali. I know it sounds selfish, but before I met Jack, I felt like I was going through life with my eyes closed. I lost the power to see bright colors, to really feel the music I played. But then I met Jack and I started to write music with real fire in it. And that's when I realized that some people need the unpredictable, the untrustworthy, the dangerous in their life. And I'm one of them. I thrive on it. Hey, I feel like Brian called George Matters, that's Alice's husband on paper. Um an old geezer. So I feel like there was a massive age gap between George and Ali. And what Ali was expressing is kind of what Jean, or what Ali is feeling and expressing is kind of what Jean, would also show like or express if she was not so repressed. I don't think Ali was ever repressed, with George. But then again, getting with a man that is like maybe twice her age, would probably have stifled, made her feel, contained, made her feel bear the expectations of dating some of being with a man like that or being married to a man like that. You get, so that's why I feel like yes, she might have not really pity but just respect and affection, fondness for George. But like this thing she has with Jack is, I don't think is as much a fling as she be. It doesn't look like this fiery affair that Jean is seeing it through the lens of, or even she herself, Ali, she might not have come to terms with how much love she feels for Jack Butterfield, because then again, she's not cheating in a way. She's separated from her husband, So the age gap between Ali and George Matters is like it makes sense that she was feeling caged. It made sense that she was feeling. I can see her point of view where she would be feeling so repressed, like not repressed. That woman is not repressed anyway, but she will be feeling she'll be feeling like a wild animal put in an aquarium or a wild animal put in a zoo, and then a zoo is so real because George is a very influential person, like not influential, but he's a respected figure. So there's a certain form of behavior, that will be expected from his wife, whether he puts that pressure on her or not, So she's a she's a wildfire, a free spirit, and she probably wouldn't be able to, have expressed everything without come naturally to her, especially as a musician. Let's just give them that bias. Like as a musician, the freedom of making music, like the inspiration, the spontaneity of making art, all of that, she would have probably felt caged in a marriage with that man. But not that he's a bad man like Gavin, I feel like I can see maybe the connection that Jean feels with Ali is not more so her family, but as much as the fact that both of them were in so this type of marriages, like being or Jean is still married to Gavin, but like being in a marriage where you have to contain everything that you are, to suit the person that you're married to. That kind of relationship. Maybe that was the um understanding that passed between them that day, that first time they met. Although only on, yeah, the first time they met, that they exchanged eye contact and all of that, or exchange gazes. I'm beginning to see it now. I'm beginning to see it now. Mm. So, but the fact that Jean is still in her marriage with Gavin, she's suppressed, she's repressed. Ali is right, to say you wouldn't understand, you get, because Jean has not come to terms with the fact that she's in such a marriage. She doesn't even know the type of marriage she's in. She feels like she probably thinks everybody else's marriage is like this, I think. So let's keep going. Jean goes on to say, I hate to say this, Ali, I really do, but Ali looked at me curiously. That's your problem. You never say what you think. Just go ahead. Flushed with the truth of her words, I plunged ahead. Okay, then I do think it sounds selfish and self justifying too. Of course, you have to justify yourself. Who else is going to justify you for you? Bro, the way the world works and the way most connections, especially relationships like Gavin, they seek to invalidate you. They seek to invalidate your sense of self, especially a with an institution like marriage in the most traditional sense of it. It seeks to invalidate everything that you are, especially when you are a woman, fulfilling the role of a wife. That institution seeks to invalidate everything you are. And if you're not with a partner that understands, the pressure and understands the kind of responsibility that comes with, being married to somebody, you're going to carry that pressure on your own. Only you is going to feel it. So, and Gavin is literally spending every waking moment of his life invalidating and, invalidating all of Jean's selves, Jean's identity, Jean's person, Jean's image, her self-image. So yes, it is self-justifying, and that's fine. You need to do some self-justifying, Jean. You go and break the heart of the kindest man you've ever met. Oh well, kindness does not mean you are you are, how do you say, immune to getting your heart broken. Does not mean you don't deserve it. Then you have the nerve to say you did it for your music. Well, music was there, like, before she became, like, music was there before Judge too. And this thing with Brian, you broke up a family, Ali. I'm sorry, but if you could have seen Brian that morning, the donut shop, the guy is falling apart. Whose fault? Whose fault, Jean? I guess that after my little lecture, I expected Ali to get up and walk away, to tell me to go to hell. But instead, she turned to me and laughed softly. See, like, as I said, Jean, this is Jean's first foray into friendship. Friendships don't work that way. I think friendship in its most genuine sense is the kind of connection where you are free to say, you know, your ideas and your beliefs about, your friend's action. You know, it doesn't mean the person is going to take your beliefs as truth or believe or accept it, but if you are free to say it, you get, in an atmosphere of love, which she just did, you get, but she still expected to be condemned because that's what Gavin has taught her. Like, that's how Gavin has taught her the world works. But instead, Ali laughs. I'm sorry, Jean, I'm not laughing at you. It's just, well, we are so unalike. Sometimes I've wondered why I would choose to confide in someone like you. Up until this moment, I never knew the answer. Which is, I said, not sure whether to feel insulted or vindicated by her words. You are my conscience. You are the girl I always wanted to be in some way. The one who knows where things are in her desk, who's never late with an assignment, the one who pays the gas bill on precisely the third of every month. Don't make me sound so boring, I said, staring at a dog. Staring at a dog that had gotten loose from its master's leash and was chasing squirrels around the park with its own and futile pursuit. Hey, hello. Like, I feel like this description is very important here. Doesn't that feel like Ali? And her owner in this sense would be Jean in a way. Like, not really her owner, but like symbolically her owner would be like pursuing her with a leash in futile pursuit, and like the leash should be this conscience, this sense, this voice of reason and normal, like common sense. You talk about me the way you do about George, which also this owner could also be George. George could also be pursuing her with a leash, you know but like allowing her to still chase her squirrels or something like that. Like, so it's so wonderful. I like the writing in this book, to be honest. Aside from that timeline thing, I like the writing in this book. I like all the descriptive phrases. I like all the um phrases, that seems like they don't belong, like seem like they don't belong, but when you pay attention, they actually do. No, not boring, and certainly not like George. For one thing, George will never tell me I was selfish. That's the poor man's problem. He refuses to see anything bad in me. And no, George will probably say I was adventurous or a free spirit. You, on the other hand, you are my mother superior gene, and I am your well, I think you need something from me too. Catching the harsh look in my eyes, Ali hesitated. So like Ali knows that every time Jean comes to an awareness of something that is not okay in her life, she shuts down immediately. So she hesitated. But Jean goes, well, go ahead. If you're going to psychoanalyze me, don't stop now, I said. What do you think I need from you? Ali took a deep breath. Maybe I'm your dark side, Jean. Oh, God. Maybe you became my friend because you'd like to be a little selfish yourself. Or maybe there's more darkness in your life than you like to admit. What's beneath all that self-control, Jane, all that secretiveness? There's got to be something. Accustomed to thinking about my own inner life, I stared after a loose dog who was bounding through the park. Another loose dog. Maybe this is high in this sense. I'm afraid your first assessment was the right one. I don't talk about myself much because there's not a lot to say. I'm hopelessly boring. Then quickly and artlessly, I directed the conversation back to a topic which I felt more comfortable, Alice's problem. So that was the only reason you got involved with Brian, because we wanted to revive your relationship with Jack. Not to say she didn't plan to break up his family, obviously. She just thought it was a nice diversion. Then she stared at me closely. But then I found out Brian was a lot more complex than I thought. Come to think of it, he's a lot like you, Jane. Someone who keeps his dark side under lock and key. But now that it's out and he's convinced himself I'm the great passion of his life. Dot dot dot. So like that's also like it's kind of like mirroring that scene that Brian had with her, or she had with Brian at the donut shop, where he's like, you know what she's like, and then she thinks to herself, yes, I do know what she's like. And then she goes on to think about how she has stopped taking her car everywhere and she has started packing her hair a certain way just because of Alice's influence. So like, yeah, like the math is matching. Needless to say, I wasn't too pleased with being compared to a guy who obviously had deep psychological problems. Okay. But now that he's out, now that you freed him from his prison of conscience, you don't know what he'll do. Is that what you're saying? Anyway, they talk about the scary messages, and then Ali turned to her, and her face more troubled than I had seen it. It wasn't the messages that scared me, Jane. Someone was in my house. This is the first time Ali like let Jane know that the stalking has started. Someone was in my house when I was away, touching my things, lying on my bed, drinking juice from my glass. It's nothing I can prove, and I suppose the police would think I was crazy if I called them, but I'm sure of it. Someone was in my bedroom, someone who wanted me to know they were there, and that they could come back whenever they wanted to. So you know how um Jamie listens in on her calls. So that night when Ali called her to be like, okay, I'm taking a few days off to do something personal, blah blah blah. Jamie could have been listening in on their conversation, and he could have taken that as an opportunity to go spy, to go break into his teacher's house, Ali's house. So that's another thing piling up against Jamie now. Chapter 7. Chapter 7. The only thing now is that there's a lot of evidence piling up against Jamie. But like what role do his parents play in all of this? Like I suspect both of them too. For some reason I suspect Jean and I suspect Gavin. So anyway, life continues in Bridgeway High School. Everybody knows about Brian now because Brian has gone on hinge, like he has left the hinges. He has broken the door, the hinges on his door of his sanity, because he's now hanging around her classes. He's showing up unshaven, unkempt. He's there pleading with her every time she walks past him in the hallway. He's following her everywhere. His students are making fun of him. He doesn't care, you know. And everybody's calling it the Brian problem now. So like, and then the principal Simon goes, oh, like Simon implies to Jean that it won't be hard to fire him the coming semester, you get, because he's obviously breaking so many regulations at school as he that is required of his job. So there will be no need to keep him on all of that. Even Jean gets a number of one of Gabby's friends, like a psychiatrist, to give him the phone number. So, but then again, she sees Beth at the store. Beth is angry at her, like, does your friend have any idea what she's done? She's like, I'm sorry. She says, save it. This kind of futile confrontations, because, like, what do you want her to do? What is Jean going to tell her friend? You know that Jean has no handle on her friend. So, and again, the damage has already been done. So, I think it's just to avoid her if you're angry. But then again, she's angry. She has to let it out somewhere. So, allow it. And then she says, Beth says fiercely, don't be sorry for me, be sorry for your friend. She doesn't know what she's gotten herself into. So then again, Beth's proclamation is kind of like sauce. But like Beth wouldn't go fumbling through Alice things. She hates the woman now. Why would she go there? Anyway, things are moving up in any other news, because that's how Ali is like. Ali doesn't see Brian as an issue at all. She doesn't even care. To her, she's over it. Her life is so full of activities, so full that a symphony that she had written the previous summer had been performed by the Boston Symphony Orchestra in their winter program. Any rave notices. Now, several notable orchestras around the country had requested to see more of her music. So she even writes, guy. She's not just playing, she writes. Okay, I get the whole idea of needing stimulation and spontaneity and inspiration, to flow. I get it. Even though she loved her students, she had already decided she wouldn't be returning to the constricted world of Bridgeway High in the fall. So in the fall means like maybe they are between spring, summer. On Friday afternoon, she goes. I think they've started this thing where at the end of the work week, Jean stops by Ali's house for a wine, like for a glass of wine, and they just chat like friends do, like girlies, like besties do. Anyway, that's like during that visit, she gives Jean a letter inviting her to her performance as a lead violinist, you know, with an orchestra in Minneapolis. She says her eyes glistening. I don't know if I've told you, but my father played with the symphony when I was a little girl. I only wish you were alive so I could see this day. I thought what you always wanted was Jack Butterfield. Silly girl dreams, remember? I don't know why, but I felt betrayed. I could feel Ali being pulled away from the narrow world of Bridgeway High, of our pretty but confining New England town. She was stretching, growing, and as always, my life remained nominally static. Again with Jean's envy of Ali's life. Silly girl dreams have their place. But these are serious woman dreams we're talking here. If I let Jack or any man stop me from taking this job, then I don't deserve to play with the first rate orchestra. Which is, I kind of like Ali in a roundabout way. Jean is pressing her about George, about Jean, about Jack. Like, oh, I go to leave them. I go to leave them. But she noticed that Ali frowned when Jack's name was mentioned. She said she has already talked it over with George. George is 100% behind her, as one's husband usually is. He even promised to take care of the cottage just in case it didn't work out and I decided to come back. Oh, as if sensing my feelings of desertion, Ali took my two hands and held them with her own. Of course, you have to come out for weekends, Jean. Sit in the front row for my first performance. The prospect of getting away from Gavin and Jamie, of being alone in a strange city, even for a weekend, excited me more than I cared to admit. So Jane is still as excited as she feels, as Ali makes her feel. she still presses Ali about Jack. Why is she pressing Ali about Jack? And Ali then confesses that now that Jack is behaving the way she wants, she's she's feeling icky about it. Not exactly a word. So she said, she says, story of my life. I guess I'm like one of those spoiled kids who want a toy in the window desperately. But as soon as I have it at home, as soon as I've taken it apart and seen exactly how it works, I lose interest. Pathological, isn't it? Like, at this point, I know that, of course, Ali also needs therapy. You know, getting your spice of life from interacting with people and, in a sense, ruining them is there was there was like it learned to it speaks of something going on like mentally. But and Jean jokes like, oh, maybe I should fix you up with Gavin, as part Gavin don't pay attention to her despite how she's devoted to him or whatever. And Ali laughed, say, I always knew that was one of yours couldn't stand me. Thanks for verifying it. But I do seem to be the type of woman who likes a challenge. Once a man starts following me around like a sheepdog, I'm gone. And that's what Jack has become, overly attentive. Starved for attention as I was, Jean is thinking. I couldn't imagine anyone complaining about her man being too devoted. I guess a ploy to make him jealous with Brian worked a little too well. All in all, it was the dumbest thing I've ever done. So Ali admits that it was just a ploy. Having an affair with Jack and Brian there was never anything serious. But then she starts to talk about why she's feeling stressed about like why Jack is boring her, because it seems like Jack is beginning to talk about marriage. Because like even me, I was thinking about it like since like after leaving George, and Jack is so important to her that she's doing anything to get him to love her, as intensely as before. If it speaks to the fact that she might have some very also differently but deep also affection for Jack, and it could be at the point of getting married. But Ali's like, no, I've gotten married before, I can't do marriage again. And also she has no intention of divorcing George. Like she's so attached to George, she doesn't want to divorce him. And since George is okay with her affair with her, not affair, but her relationship with Jack. So I think Ali might be a polyamorous kind. George too might also be polyamorous, but Jack is not polyamorous. She's like crazy passion. You can't certainly build a marriage on that. And it's like crazy passion can help you build a marriage. Kindness and understanding and loving companion and tenderness also can also make you stay married to your husband. So like you need to define what it is you want. So I guess that's why she's polyamorous, which is very valid, all those kind of stuff. Jean hears all of this train of thought. I rose from the couch and went to the window that overlooked the garden Ali had just begun planting. Like everything she created, it was a place of solace and beauty. I particularly loved the little stone bench she had placed right in the middle of it, a corner where someone might sit out late after dark, lost in the fragrance of the night blooming flowers and the glittering stars. It was the kind of place I never had for myself, a place where you have no choice but to confront the truth of your life. I pulled the curtain shut, blocking out the light, and turned to face my friend. This is this is a very, I don't know, it's just kind of sad. It's just so sad. So sad. Like Ginny's life is so sad. She's like, and I understand now why she cannot confront the truth. Because like, okay, she confronts the truth, then what? It will even be worse living with the truth and then trying to keep up the sham, keep up the facade. So it's fine not to confront the truth and just keep keeping on that's when she'll have the strength to keep keeping on the facade. But if she confronts the truth and everything just blows up in the open, like what next? She can't process, she can't process, obviously she can't process what next after you know that, especially considering that marrying Gavin was like a gift to her mother, so her mother would die peacefully. And her mother is dead, so like she can go back to her mother and be like, oh, I want to leave this man. So at least if she confront her mother or something, maybe they will come to an agreement or something, I don't know, like closure or something. But now her mother is not there to give her any sort of buffer or closure for making this decision, because her mother's closure was dying. Jane is near tears and she's like, if not passion, love, then what do you build a marriage on? Because she doesn't have passion, she doesn't have love. So like it's like basically it feels as if to me, it feels like Jean is like saying It's like Jean is just coming to awareness that she doesn't have passion and she doesn't have love. She doesn't have the passion of Jack Butterfield in her marriage, and she doesn't have the love of George, Martha in her marriage. So like, what is her marriage then built on? Lies. Like, oh God, I like this writing. This writing is so freaking good. Like, it's telling us without narrating it for you. You get, it's like so important to write like this. Oof. I said, turning to face Ali in the room. I hope she wouldn't see the tears glistening in my eyes. And then Ali came and wrapped her arms around me. Oh, Ginny, I'm sorry, she said, stroking my hair. I can be so selfish at times. All this talk about love and marriage when you are so unhappy. At first, I was stunned by her words, the simple statement I never made out loud, never even allowed myself to think. Then, for some reason I couldn't explain, perhaps it was just her sympathetic touch. I wept. Perhaps it was just her sympathetic touch. The first I could remember feeling since my parents died. I wept like a child. You need to talk about it, Jean, Ali murmured into my ear. If you keep holding everything inside like this, it's going to destroy you and your son. And of course, that is a hairline trigger because she pushes Ali away and she runs. She leaves her home. She said, all the way home and for days afterward, I felt Alice Topper's colored eyes on me as they had been when I left the house. Sorrowful eyes, compassionate eyes. For some reason, they disturbed me more than if she had slapped me. Later over dinner with Gavin and Jamie, because she had gone back to, the default, the habit. She starts to child herself for her silly behavior, blaming it on the wife. So she has like, in a way, she has shut down one under, she has swept it under the carpet again, or locked it in a box, or kept behind the red door again, because her home is where that kind of thing is not allowed. So she goes home that night, and for some reason, they go to see a movie together. And she says, sitting there in the dark theater, wedged between my husband and my son, I felt almost happy. She's watching a literal horror movie and she's like, just because she's wedged between her husband and her son, she feels happy. But when Gavin glanced, she says, I told myself perhaps that my own fears and misgivings were no more real than these celluloid dreams. But when Gavin glanced over at me, something in me cringed. They returned home after the movie, and she sees that Ali had left a message inviting her to a performance, a concert on the Cape, and because everybody's listening and they all got home together, Gavin just hijacks the whole thing, says, oh, I'll talk to Jamie about it. It's about time this family took in a little culture. And Jane's heart just sinks inside. She had been hoping to make the trip alone with Ali. So she said she'll call Ali and let her know. I don't know why, perhaps it was just the tightness of Gavin's smile, the falsity of it. But instead of looking forward to the concert, I went to bed that night with a heavy feeling of dread. Even though I slept well, aided by the content of my little bottle, I woke up the following morning feeling shaky and exhausted. God, Kata is just beating my ass so bad. I can't. I'm trying to read sentences that make me feel something or to build up something. My nose is just like blocking every breath. Like, do your job, please. God. We go on to chapter 8. Chapter 8 is about the concert, but before the concert, there was this confrontation they had in the morning where James is like he doesn't want to go to he doesn't want to go to the concert because Gavin was like all three of them will go, but James is like he doesn't want to go to the concert, blah blah blah. That why we pretend to be a family, first to go to the movies, like as if I'm 10 years old, and then now you want us to go to concert. I don't even like the concert, it's boring music and all of that, and we're pretending to be a family. And something cracks inside Jane. She's like, this was part of the code. Maybe even one. If anyone speaks the truth, act as if you didn't hear it. But since I told Ali, absorbed some of her courage and honesty, I too was tired of living in a climate of falsity and subtle intimidation. Escaping the patterns I had developed over 17 years, however, was no easy task. So she starts to confront Jamie, and Jamie's like, we walk around like this perfect family straight out of Nickelodeon reruns. It's bullshit, mom. And you know it. Something is missing here. Something is wrong. But before I could elaborate, Gavin pops up and is like, wrong. Did I hear someone say something wrong? And there was a familiar edge in his voice, even though he was smiling. So, because of Gavin's overall threatening aura and intimidation and his habit of just silencing his family over things he doesn't like to see or hear or do, everybody drops it. So now they have to go to church. But Gavin allows him to miss the concert. He says, okay, if you don't want to go to concert, fine. But then they think to themselves, like, with Gavin, there was a price to pay for every small victory. Obviously, we're both wondering what this one would cost us. So the night of the concert, they go, and Gavin and Ali meet for the first time, and they get on like a house on fire, because Ali whispers to Jane, like, oh, you never told me your husband was so good looking. All of the women at the concert are looking at her husband. Dr. Cross is so handsome, so this. And Jane, obviously, she doesn't get any attention for herself because she's like a plain Jane. So, but she feels proud of the attention her husband is getting, because it's like, oh, that's my husband. No, everybody likes him. Everybody thinks he's handsome. So it's a tell on me. You get, and the one that won, that kind of twisted third party kind of enjoyment of someone else's goodness or someone else's gift, whatever. So anyway, they get along with like a house on fire. Gavin and they're just laughing it up, it up. And then George is there too, because obviously George is there for Ali. George gets along with Jane, and he's older, he's mature. I keep saying this word mature, it's like not really, but um George is actually the real definition of logical, rational. He's in a polyamorous relationship with his wife. Of course, his brain is big. Anyway, and then he looks at Jean, and I don't know, he sees through her in an instant, because he goes, and how are you, Jean? And it's like in italics, so you know that it's a really piercing question or whatever. And then Jean starts to think to herself, like, um the more I felt myself being transformed by his attention, it wasn't hard to guess how Ali had fallen for a man of such obvious and rare warmth. The concert progressed. It was obvious that he was a connoisseur of good music. Whenever I glanced over at him, he seemed positively transported. His obvious pride in his wife was equally touching. Several times during the concert, he reached over and touched my arm, saying, "Isn't she wonderful?" And during the intermission, he took me aside, whispering in an excessively loud manner that made me wonder if he was hard of hearing. See, he's an old man, oh, a really old man. If you ask me, Ali has outgrown the quartet. Oh, they're competent musicians and all, but they're amazed with the talent she has. Needs an opportunity to stretch. I think told you about her offer in Minneapolis. Whatever. So they both look at Ali at the same time, and they see Ali and Gavin leaning towards each other, deeply engrossed in conversation. As per I have seen a woman that is age mate. I feel like Jean is way younger than Ali, and I feel like Ali is like the same age, like age mates with Gavin, basically. Not that she can see through his bullshit, but anybody can see through Gavin's bullshit. If you take a closer look, it doesn't take a genius to figure out his clownishness. When they see those two together like that, Jean starts to think. She wonders. She's like, how many years has it been since he had smiled like that when he spoke to me? Whatever. So, George, reading the situation, draws her away from that scene, and he's like talking to her, like trying to. I think like he's trying to explain. In retrospect, I see he's trying to explain Alice's behavior to Jean, like she should not take it to heart, saying things like, you know, I come from a traditional. I come from a traditional Lebanese family, very protective of our women and our honor. Years ago, I'd have gone wild to say a man looking at my wife the way your husband is doing right now. But over the years, well, I come to realize that Alice like the sunset. It's only natural that people should be a bit dazzled by her. Oh, so she says, he goes on to say, as for your husband, I wouldn't take it seriously. He's just gazing at the sunset, that's all. But then Jean reacts very like upset. She's like, what, don't you think that I'm jealous? But George stares into her face and is like, perhaps I was wrong, but I thought there was pain in your eyes. And then she says, you were wrong. I've never been jealous of your wife, George. I love Ali. And as for Gavin, my so-called husband, well, I couldn't care less how he looks at her or any other woman. And it's like, okay, you're not jealous, but why is there pain in your eyes? Again, that thing about envy, like she probably envies this thing, Ali, and is probably looking at her still in that celebrity energy, that parasocial celebrity energy, because when you're parasocial celebrity, you feel like you can read their emotions, and most times you might be right because this empathy is not that hard. So like you start to feel like you know this person, you care about this person, but then you might just be envious, and the connection might not be on equal footing. Their undeniable truth made me sure that so she's not jealous of George at all. Ew. She's not jealous of Ali, sorry, at all, in that sense. Like, oh, maybe her husband is talking to a beautiful woman. That's not what he's doing now at all. Oh. And she says that their undeniable truth made me sure that. So I think she wants to be Ali at this point in time. So Ali goes on to play, goes on stage. Finally, everybody's listening to her, and there's this moment where Ali has this gaze, like gazes upon Jean, and Jean says, Jean feels she feels the power of the unlikely friendship that had developed over the past month. I wanted to give her some sign that I was behind her, a high five like Jamie would have done with his friends, but in the present setting. I had to let the obvious pride in my eyes and face speak for itself. And then she doesn't look at her husband. Anyway, Ali turns to play her music, but then she gasps audibly, changing the mood in the room. My music, she says in a ragged voice, as she pushed her chair noisily back from her stand. So George rushes over. Despite his age, you will not believe that he can fly the stage like that. And George is holding on to her like, oh, why would, and he's holding on to her, he's showing concern and all of that. And Ali's like, why would someone do this to me? Speaking into the world of sympathy in his dark eyes. And why now, after all my hard work? As for me, I focused on the sheet music, which has so disturbed my friend. At first, it took me a moment to find the score of Paradise Suite, which she had immediately covered with the music from the first half of the concert. But when I did, it was instantly apparent that Ali's alarm was justified. Not only was the score defaced with blood, it had been poked and slashed in a way that indicated the perpetrator had used a knife. The title had been violently X'd out and replaced with a new one, also written in blood. As soon as I saw it, I felt something give way in myself. So she looked at Ali, Ali's eyes fastened on her immediately, and both of them, they come to this conclusion, like they cannot report it to the police because there's no evidence, but now they come to the conclusion that it was verification that she was being stalked, and that someone was running his hands over her silky garment when she wasn't home, reading her mail, even penetrating the sacrosanct music room. And furthermore, the perpetrator was letting her know he meant her harm. Feeling unsteady, I reached for George's arm. Anyway, Jean faints. And then when she comes back, Gavin is there, and they go home. Chapter 9, they go home. And chapter 9 starts with her saying, I'm really good at pretending, as Jamie called it. She goes on to tell us the words Paradise Suite had been crossed out and replaced with a new title, Death Suite, and the name of the composer had been changed from AC Mother to Slay Her, literally slay her. Then the most defining aspect of this whole defacement was that the writing is exactly the way Jamie writes. It's just the same thing as Jamie's penmanship. And so she's like, she has to confront Gavin. She's like, we have to talk, Gavin. I said, knowing I was violating the code. Gavin sighed deeply. It's late, Jane. We have to be up early for church. Baba, if you don't shut up. I don't care if it's 3 in the morning, Gavin. We can't just pretend this happened. We can't just pretend this didn't happen. And then they hear soft feet padding in the hall. It's like, why is Jamie always like listening on things? Like, what is wrong with that boy? Gavin, you saw that handwriting. It was a note of pleading and entered my voice. I'll tell you what I saw. I saw a middle-aged woman with her hair down, sashaying around like a girl. A former beauty who can't get over the fact that her time is past. And Jean is like, okay, Jean, even Jean is used to repressing and taking Gavin's word for it. She's like, bro, Like, don't even go there. Like, you think Ali did it to herself, like, is that what you are saying? So Jean goes on to say, as if Ali needed to stoop to cheap tricks to get attention from men. I saw you, Gavin. You couldn't keep your eyes off her. So that's what this really is about. Your jealousy. As I said, Jean, I'd love to stay up and chat, but I have to get up early in the morning. What this is about, Gavin, is our son. There have been signs of problems for months, maybe even years. We have to deal with it. But Gavin sat up in bed and seized my wrist with a force that startled me. He glanced towards the bedroom door as if he was certain someone was outside listening. Then he lowered his voice to a harsh whisper. See, as I'm jumping words and I'm not reading properly, you guys should blame my nose. I don't know why. It's just what? Not my nose, just blame the whole condition. Like, just go. It's time for you to go. And just how do you propose we do that, Jean? Calling some little psychologist with a fresh BA to test her schoolgirl theories on our family, go to the police and turn in our own son over a piece of shit music. He squeezed my wrist tighter. What you saw was nothing, Jean. Got that? Absolutely nothing. Now turn out that light. And this time, with my wrist aching, I complied. So later on in the night, she stands up, she goes over to look at her son. Like, she can't, like, she's looking at her son as if mental issues are written on the face of people, like as if you see signs of disturbedness or you see signs of mental instability on people's face, like we say in this country, like, they show for face. Like, so when she goes to look at her son sleeping, and he's sleeping, of course, in repose, his face is going to look like your baby. It's clouded by the bias of you having him. Like, he's literally your son. You're not going to see anything wrong on his face, especially when he's asleep. You saw those stash of violent pornography in his room, and you couldn't even confront him. So you think you're going to see signs of stalking and defacing people's property with blood and knife and scaring them within an inch of their life? You're going to see it on his face. You're not going to see it on his face. But anyway, she just needed something. Like, she just needed some sort of reassurance, I guess. Then she goes back to sleep. Before that, she reaches for the Advian and quickly pops one in her mouth, followed by another for insurance. That night, I wanted to sleep like the dead. So in the morning, Gabby wakes up earlier than her. He goes to make her a cup of coffee, trying to pretend like he's taking care of her. Says, I'm thinking about our problem. It's your job, Jean. You see, working full-time at school and thinking of everything here, you are exhausted. Hey, God. But I like my job. And if I didn't work, what would I do all day? Ada the veneer once again cracked. If you're that bored, why don't you go back to school and get yourself a degree? Felt myself ready. God knew how self-conscious and inadequate I thought I was. Like, guy, okay, you're telling her to go to school and get herself a degree, trying to mock her. Not like a helpful suggestion. You're trying to mock her as per what kind of boredom you think is worrying you or something, or who do you think you are? All those kind of stuff. And like, you married her when she was 18, and both of you worked to pay your student loans. She used all of her youth to work to pay your student loan. And now that people are stable and settled, and she has even found herself a job, even without a college degree, she's the secretary of a whole high school without a college degree. Like, see how smart and brilliant she is, really. Now you want to shame her for something stupid that you did. Like, you say, she goes on to say she feels inadequate around other doctors. Why? Because they are career women, they have jobs, they have this, they have lives. And it's like, ma'am, you shouldn't do this to yourself, because he should be feeling shame. Other his mates were marrying established women in their own right. He chose to look for a child to marry. Like, isn't that something he should feel shame about? This is something he should not show his face in society for. His own mates, they're looking for where is that? What does that say about him? What does that say about him and his brain? I beg go. But I don't let anybody put you down for anything. Say something like, you are feeling inadequate because your husband, your doctor husband, is doctor's wife's friend are established. They should have married a 18-year-old now. Let's see if all of them will become established women in career and all of that. And all of them are paying student loans. Nonsense. I beg. She even said it. that you know that Gavin has his own practice, oh, and she used her sweat and her blood and her energy and her youth to contribute to that contribute to that practice. But her name is not on that building. I'm sure she not say anything. As for me, I clung to the job I had taken to help out in the early years when Gavin was building his factory practice, and we're still struggling with student loans. Can you imagine? I beg, I beg, I beg, I beg. She now goes on to think like, um, she starts to think to herself that she had never been a great student, no matter how hard she tried, that she had been out of school for so long. She doubted she could even pass a college course, which is like is a lie. At any age, you can go back to school and do whatever the fuck you want. People that go to college, it's not their youth that makes them pass all their courses or attend lectures. It's just I'm here, I'll do it. Okay, it's not like it's something you've known all your life. You know, there are new courses, new environments. You just learn, you just adapt, and you get on with it. But obviously, her brain is rewired by everything that's happened to her. So anyway, he's like, once you quit your job, you have time for things like that. Stupid man. And Jean is like, ah no, I enjoy my work. Oh, you know, I have pride in that. I take pride in what I do, running the school efficiently. And he's like scoffing. Please, Jean, you're just a secretary, not the superintendent of school. I'm sure Bridgeway High School will run just fine without you. And quite frankly, it's an embarrassment to me. An embarrassment. I repeated, feeling as though I'd be physically hit. Yes, how many doctors' wives do you see in dead end subservient job? People must wonder what secret vice is sucking up all our income. Really, Jane, let's look at this thing rationally. I'm offering to liberate you. Don't be a fool. Hey, hey, God. The audacity. The audacity. Because if she goes for a divorce now, you know that she can demand half of that stupid fucking practice that is toting around town as his own biggest achievement. Like, because she was part of the building blocks, she used her salary to build the practice. She used her salary to pay a student loan. I'm sure there are receipts, okay, that you can bring up in court and be like, I deserve half of this, the earnings of this practice. It is mine because I built it with you. Please, oh, please, 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 please. All these Jeff Bezos, them kind of useless men. Not even just Jeff Bezos, like ordinary doctor. Ordinary doctor. I beg you, let's say what? What is between a secretary and a doctor? Tell me. I beg, I beg, I beg. I beg. It's just annoying me, please. This is something that no, it's obvious for me to see because I was not groomed. You know, I'm not forced into a marriage, you know, and you know, I'm not like without parents, you know, in that sense. I'm not isolated from the world. I have family members, I have friends, I have, you know, siblings, you know, all of them that their good counsel keeps my head straight, you know, most of the time. And she doesn't have anybody in this world. She only has her husband and her son is mentally deranged, you know, and her husband is a clown that refuses to see it. So what can she do? What will a girl do? What will a woman do? But that's what she think, that what was her option. But I'm sure there are tons of options. But let's just keep going. Jane goes, though everything in me cried out against the liberation he was offering, I soon heard myself tentatively bargaining for time. Well, I couldn't just leave them flat in the middle of the year. I'm not suggesting you leave without giving 2 weeks notice. Really, Jane, how difficult do you think it would be to find another secretary? Gavin said once again, flashing his cold, victorious smile. I reached stealthily into my bathroom pocket for my little blue pill, and as soon as he turned his back, I popped it in my mouth. My personal ticket to oblivion. Anyway, this day, she says, though I'd never missed church, he didn't seem at all surprised to find me still in my room. Jamie's in the car waiting for me. He said, if anyone asks, I'll say you were a bit under the weather this morning. Apparently, Gavin was nearly out the door when he turned around casually and said, oh yes, one more thing, casually. The whole point of this whole conversation. Oh yes, one more thing, Jane. Do you really think it's wise for you to continue to drive that music teacher to school? That music teacher, already he had stripped Ali of her name, her identity. Why not, I asked, feeling my speech slow, the effect of the medication already apparent. She's on my way, and besides, I enjoy the company. Gavin drew himself in closer, a familiar scowl tightening his face. I'm sure you do enjoy your little gossip sessions, Jean. But this isn't about you. This is about our son. I thought we agreed last night that the woman is a bad influence on Jamie. I tried to play the conversation we had had in my mind, but despite the chemically infused fuzziness, chemically induced fuzziness I was experiencing. I was sure we had agreed on nothing of the kind. And though I had no intention of giving up my friendship with Ali, I continued to smile and nod. Don't worry, now that the weather is getting warmer, Ali is going to be taking her bike again anyway. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. So I'll come back again and, you know, with another part completing the book. This is where I'm at. So how was the story so far? Like I feel like I said, this just 80 something chapter. I'm not even going to the third of the book, but like it's so intense. Like there's a lot that happened, and I feel like I need to say this because if I try to put everything together, like finally, it's going to take maybe 4 hours. This is already like 2 hours. So anyway, are you excited for the rest of the book? I am, and I'm excited to share it with you again. Yes, thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.